The majestic mansion was striking in its splendor, not inferior to a real palace, demonstrating wealth, luxury, and the ducal title. And, of course, he radiated sophistication, impeccable taste, and noble dignity. The girl now looked at her mother-in-law and gradually realized that all this luxury, power, and status belonged entirely to her. As the young lady sat next to the woman over a cup of tea, she felt awkward, as if every gesture and word was under scrutiny. Meanwhile, the mother-in-law calmly placed her cup of tea on the table, as if nothing unusual had happened. The woman then asked if there were any signs of pregnancy yet, causing the girl to almost choke, spilling tea on herself. The girl quickly wiped her mouth, simultaneously apologizing for the awkwardness caused by the unexpected question. The woman carefully wiped the tea off herself and reminded him that she had said many times that the family needed an heir, and this was not up for discussion. At that moment, the main character understood that everything was strictly according to the rules of blue blood, and she herself had almost no charisma. The young lady wondered if she couldn't even have a cup of tea in peace, and her mother-in-law reminded her that almost 2 years had passed since her arrival, and even a fortune-teller helped her choose a suitable date. It was the fortune-teller who determined when it was necessary to act and made them follow these recommendations. However, the woman noted that she was not able to control the girl's every action, leaving her with personal responsibility. After that, she asked how the girl assessed her happiness at receiving the title of Duchess, since she was chosen solely for a good reason. The main character reflected that this woman always repeats her rules and instructions, and never tires of insisting on her own way. At this point, the mother-in-law reminded them that 4 generations of their family had been highly fertile, and that the girl's mother had given birth to several children besides her, and asked what the girl had been doing during these 2 years. The woman emphasized that their family had a history comparable to that of the emperor's, and was interested in how the girl could contribute something significant to their lineage. The girl just silently thought about why she was enduring these reproaches and comments, remaining on the sidelines. The woman reminded him of the deal they had made, as if expecting confirmation. The main character mentally replied that, of course, she had not forgotten about the agreement. In her memories, she saw herself signing papers with trembling hands, irritated by the need to do so. It was not she herself who signed the contract, but Selena, and this thought slightly worried the girl. She realized that her past and current situations were very different, and this created internal discomfort. At that moment, the blonde just clicked her tongue, emphasizing the girl's uselessness, not shying away from her assessments. The young lady understood that she wouldn't be able to defend herself even with words. She could only watch silently. Realizing this, she understood that she did not yet have a close relationship with her mother-in-law's son, and the situation was difficult. Until now, there had not been a single intimate moment between them, which only increased the tension. Now the girl clearly understood that the return of memories of a past life was not a joke and could have serious consequences. If she had acted like Celine in the original story, the consequences would have been disastrous, and she could have found herself in mortal danger. In this case, she could become the wife who poisoned her husband and be sentenced to death. The mother-in-law asked what had happened, and the girl froze, answering to herself that nothing special had happened. The woman argued that the girl's body should be ready to continue the family line and insisted on taking care of her health, since there had recently been rumors about her sanity. The girl just smiled, assuring herself and her mother that everything was fine with her body and mind, despite the pressure. Suddenly, a strange noise was heard, interrupting the young lady's thoughts. She listened in surprise, quickly realizing that this sound was familiar to her, causing alarm. A maid rushed into the room, screaming that the Duke had fallen again and the situation had become critical again. A little later, 2 girls entered the room where the Duke lay, and the mother-in-law asked whether the misfortune had happened again. The young man meanwhile writhed in pain, remaining almost motionless on the bed. The girl understood that, even while suffering, he retained his attractiveness and nobility, causing her mixed feelings. The blonde screamed her son's name, as if trying to attract his attention and show her anxiety. The young lady realized that before her stood Duke Wiprit, her husband, whose illness threatened his life at any moment. The boy extended his trembling hand, and the girl realized that the information available to her about him was extremely limited, since in the original story, he was a minor character. Despite this, the young lady took his hand carefully, feeling the responsibility and connection between them. She knew their relationship wasn't close enough to hold hands yet, but she did it almost instinctively. The girl reflected that even if their relationship was false, watching him suffer was always painful. Every time she sees him suffer, it becomes difficult for her, and it leaves a deep mark on her heart. Selena mentally urges Amid to hold on and hopes that he won't go into eternal sleep right now, without giving up hope. Suddenly, he squeezed her hand hard, and the young lady was shocked to realize how strong a sick person could be. She only repeated words of support, but inside she felt a sharp pain, worrying about him with all her heart. When the guy squeezes her hand tighter, Selena feels tears welling up, realizing that this does not justify his rudeness. Suddenly, one of the maids bumps into the young lady, notices that she is in the way, and demands that she move away to avoid causing more inconvenience. Selena realizes that the person standing in front of her is Amida's maid, and her name is Emma. The girl thinks that she would like to leave herself, but she can't, because the guy is holding her with his hand too tightly. Another maid tries to calm Selena, assuring her that the master will recover, and the young lady quietly agrees, hoping for this. After some time, Raymond reports that the dangerous period has been overcome. The woman is surprised and remembers that the guy had already come to his senses recently, asking why the situation repeated itself so soon. Selena is next to the Duke and joyfully realizes that he seems to have woken up. She looks carefully at his sleeping face, trying not to scare him from waking up. At that moment, Selena notices that he looks almost like an angel, so quiet and calm. Suddenly he opens his eyes and the young lady is a little shocked. She watches as he quietly orders her to leave without saying a word. Selena is confused, wondering if he is still in pain and trying to understand his condition. She cries out, asking where exactly the pain is and if she needs to call Raymond. But the guy quietly extends his hand to her, as if inviting her to him. Selena's eyes widen, shocked by his sudden action. She sees him lean towards her and repeat that he asked her to leave, but he does it almost playfully. The girl looks at him in surprise, and he only asks what she is looking at so intently. Selena sighs quietly, trying to calm herself down. The guy notices that her gaze irritates him and demands that she finally let go of his hand. Selena pulls her hand away, thinking she wants to scream, but realizes he was holding her so tightly that her knuckles were white. Now she is silent, and he again asks what she is doing and reminds her that it is time to leave. Selena understands that she must be patient because he is sick, and asks Amid to calm down so as not to make the situation worse. The guy simply tells her to stop interfering, trying to show the strength of his will. He states that she will not get what she wants from him, no matter how persistent she is. Selena quietly asks who said that, because she herself did not expect anything like that. The guy is surprised, not understanding what she is talking about, and this only adds to the tension. The girl screams, wondering why he behaves like this immediately after waking up, and where to put the excess energy. He's angry, and Selena wonders if he really thinks she'll just give up. Her gaze falls on the bottle of medicine on the nightstand nearby. She carefully takes it in her arms and turns to Mr. Amid, warning him that he might harm himself. Selena wants him to take his medicine quickly and go back to bed to recover. The guy looks at the bottle with surprise, and Selena feels like she is offering him poison, although, in fact, this is not the case. The girl understands that if he continues to persist, she will have no choice. The only option is to give him medicine to help. With a smile on her face, she asks him to agree. The guy only notices that Selena seems to have gone crazy and is surprised by her behavior. She answers with the same smile that perhaps that is so. Selena watches the Duke and realizes that she is now ready to defend her decisions, which he clearly did not expect. She is surprised that he is so resistant to taking the medicine. The girl realizes that, in fact, this man is deeply unhappy and suffering. As soon as he joined the ranks of the Knights of the Sun, the country's most honorable guard, his life changed dramatically. An unknown disease has struck him, and even in peace in his own room he suffers. He suffers from involuntary convulsions that paralyze his body, The mother-in-law constantly reminds him that she doesn't know when he might finally leave and demands the speedy birth of an heir. Selena understands that she is simply fulfilling her mother-in-law's will, nothing more. She is a woman he encounters for the first time. Now the young lady realizes that she is the very woman who needs his care. The Duke looks at her angrily and tells her not to look at him like that. Selena asks what he means, but gets no answer. He screams that she looks at him as if he were an animal suffering and close to death from pain. Amid abruptly snatches the bottle from her and takes the medicine. After that, he quietly watches Selena, as if checking her reaction. The maids are embarrassed and look away, not knowing how to react. Selena starts clapping her hands, happy that everything went well. She smiles quietly and thinks that now she can breathe a sigh of relief. The girl is confident that this was the right step and feels the tension gradually disappear. One of the maids testified that the girl seemed to have completely lost her mind, and this became noticeable to everyone around her. After that, she looked around the situation and asked if everything was now finished, to which Selena nodded in confirmation. The young man stated that he had already taken the medicine, and therefore it was better for the girl to leave the room. Selena agreed and, as she left the room, felt relieved the act was over. She added mentally that the young man should now rest and regain his strength after everything he had been through. After some time, finding herself outside, Selena noticed that she felt as if she had just been in a real battle, and the maid hastened to check if everything was all right with her mistress. Selena admitted that this is not the first time that the gentleman sometimes becomes overzealous and crosses boundaries. She noted that if she were in his place, she probably wouldn't be able to forgive herself either, and the maid asked what she meant. The young lady wondered why the others were pretending to know everything, and remembered how the other maids had called her a duchess, who had come only for the sake of the heir. Rona hastened to assure Selena that she had never thought of her that way, and the main character herself replied that she knew. Rona was speaking sincerely, but others sometimes called her that way. Rona tried to add something else about Selena, but quickly realized that she was dealing with a man who couldn't lie. After that, she stated that everything was fine, and that the maid should leave the mistress alone, and Selena nodded in agreement. However, Rona's gaze fell on the lady's hand, covered in bruises, and she screamed, noticing the injuries. Selena realized that everything had been fine with her before, and the situation was not as dire as it had seemed at first. As she moved her hand, she realized that the bones were not damaged, which gave her some confidence in her health. Selena calmed down, realizing that compared to the future that awaited her, this was nothing, and she could cope with it. Meanwhile, the maid only addressed the young lady with admiration, noting her kindness and fortitude. She understood that the gentleman was not able to appreciate what a huge and bright heart Selena had, but fortunately, Selena had been comforting the gentleman for the last 2 weeks, and people began to talk about her behavior. Many thought the young lady had gone mad, but Rona realized that this was not the case and fell silent for a moment. Selena watched the maid silently, not saying a word, and analyzing her reaction. Rona tearfully said that she didn't mean it in any bad way, and Selena replied that everything was fine and she understood. The maid asked what she was talking about, and Selena explained that in the eyes of those around her, she looked crazy, although she herself felt differently. Selena wondered who could believe that just 2 weeks ago she had regained her memories of her past life. She also remembered that this place existed inside the book she had once read, as if it had materialized from the pages. Selena realized that her role in this book was not the best one and was far from safe for her. She realized that in this story, she was the wife who poisoned her own husband, and her fate was sealed. The reason why the novel's subtitle was Lady Corona, Veronica's Memoirs became clear to Selena. This work was created under the name of the main character, and the book was her personal memoirs and recollections. The story about Selena, as told by Veronica, had a sinister undertone and revealed her role as a villain. Selena realized that she was the one in the novel who poisoned her sick husband, Duke Amid, and was executed for it. The words came from Camilla's mother-in-law, who was eager to take revenge on her daughter-in-law and punish her in the most cruel way. Rumors swirled around the community about why Selena had put Amid into eternal sleep and the horror that accompanied the event. Camilla paid the executioner, to make the execution as painful and lengthy as possible, depriving the girl of all hope. The two women whispered, claiming that Selena had wanted to take possession of the inheritance, but the child had not been born, and so she had gone mad. The Duke was ill, and could easily have been poisoned. It was also said that if her husband fell into eternal sleep, the property would go to her, but the Duke did not even suspect such a possibility. Besides, Selena had a lover. Thanks to Camilla's intrigues, Selena was locked in the filthiest cell, where she was treated worse than a runaway slave until she was plunged into eternal sleep. Over time, the criminal was headed to execution, and people said that she, like a demon, repeated the same words, frightening everyone around. But in fact, it wasn't her, although no one believed her, leaving the girl in complete despair. On Camilla's orders, Selena was tortured as long as possible, prolonging her suffering, and it was said that she only took her life on the third day. Now the young lady realized that with the return of all these memories, her mental health began to gradually deteriorate. One of the maids at that moment looked at Selena with obvious bewilderment, wondering if she had gone crazy. Her actions seemed so strange, but the main character herself at this time was only thinking about why she had to find herself in such a situation and make these decisions. Nevertheless, Selena managed to pull herself together and focus on finding a way out of the difficult situation, with Veronica's biography playing a key role, from her childhood in an orphanage to the moment of her accession to the throne. After all these entries were written by Veronica herself, based on her personal experience and reasoning, so there was practically no information about other people and events. No matter how much Selena tried to study the novel, she couldn't find a single clue that could really help her in her current situation. And gradually the girl realized that if she had not signed the contract that Camilla had offered her earlier, many things would have turned out completely differently. Then the circumstances could have developed completely differently, and the outcome of the situation would have been unpredictable. Selena understood that her current situation had not always been like this, and that life before this had looked completely different. The young lady's family once enjoyed considerable wealth thanks to her father, who headed a large and successful company. But the father, who often went on voyages on merchant ships, died in a severe storm, and his ship was completely destroyed. The news of his death shocked his mother, who died soon after, unable to survive the premature birth of her fifth child, as if fate itself had deprived Selena of her parents. At this time, the father's business partners made their claims, demanding compensation for the losses they suffered after the tragic death of the head of the family. After these events, Selena was forced to take care of her family's financial needs herself and start working to support her family. She took on any household chores, cleaning, cooking, taking care of the house, did everything that was necessary for the family's survival. Even helping out at the pharmacy or taking part in other small jobs did not go unnoticed by her. There was no task she would not take on. Selena sold everything that was left in the house, but there was still not enough money, and her efforts did not bring in sufficient income. She still couldn't afford to send her younger siblings to school, which added to her worries and burdens. It was then that Miss Camilla approached her and stated that she had heard that in the family the girls were famous for their ability to produce offspring, which Selena did not immediately understand. The woman only hinted that she hoped these words also applied to Selena herself, leaving her perplexed. The young lady did not fully understand the meaning of these hints until Camilla directly stated that she wanted Selena to bear an heir to her son. Duchess Camilla's son was a weak and sickly child, living only for today, not knowing when he might fall into eternal sleep forever, and he was the sole heir of the previous duke. If misfortune befell him, the inheritance of the duchy would be at risk, so a successor was urgently needed. However, no one wanted to give their daughters in marriage to a sick heir who could die at any moment, and even among noble families there were no takers. Ultimately, the Duchess made the best decision to solve this complex problem based on the actual circumstances. She decided to choose a girl from a noble family that had become impoverished but retained a good reputation suitable for her purposes. Camilla stated that if Selena gave birth to an heir, she would pay off all her debts and provide a decent life for her younger brothers and sisters. The main character understood that her good heredity and the absence of parents who could object made her an ideal candidate for marriage with the ailing duke. Selena fully met these conditions and was the daughter of a ruined but respected aristocratic family. The girl had no reason to refuse, and having married, she became a duchess, taking on new responsibilities and challenges. This story could have had a happy ending if Selena had been able to give birth to a child and her life would have turned out well. But everything went differently from the very first meeting with the Duke. When the young lady first entered the Duke's room, she felt uneasy, not knowing how to behave. He only asked who she was, leaving her confused and bewildered. Selena didn't even know what to answer, thinking that the guy simply didn't understand anything about the current situation. The blonde insisted on understanding what was happening, and the girl tried to find words, but could not explain the whole situation. She knew he had been told he was sick, but to her eyes he looked perfectly healthy, which confused her even more. The guy asked if she would continue to remain silent, and this made Selena nervous and think about her actions. The main character was amazed by his appearance, his beauty, and it became clear to her that even an arranged marriage should not frighten her. In her imagination, the Duke looked completely different, and the idea of marriage seemed even stranger. The young man asked if she could open her mouth and tell him who she was, or if she was just a new maid, so that she could go to the others and find out where her room was. Selena explained that she had been told that she would be spending the night in this very room, and the Duke, not understanding what was being said, frowned. He added that his mother had also ordered him to come here, but this seemed strange and illogical to him. He continued asking questions, trying to find out who was in front of him and what her intentions were. In despair, Selena cried out that she was the Duke's wife, realizing that the situation was developing unpredictably. The Duke asked if she was really his wife, not understanding how this could happen. He also asked, when he got a wife, if he himself didn't know anything about it, and the girl said that it happened a month ago. Selena realized that mastering everything was easier than she thought, since she'd only arrived here a month ago and begun training under Camilla's supervision. More precisely, she was learning all the intricacies needed to become the mother of an heir. After this, Camilla forced her to sign a marriage contract, and Selena officially became the Duke's wife, although she herself did not even suspect that her husband did not know about it. Now the young lady was reminding herself of what she had promised Camilla, and the Duke seemed to be wondering what exactly she had promised. Selena answered herself that her promise was to bear her husband an heir. The Duke only looked at her in surprise, and the girl understood that his surprise was about to turn into irritation. But when nothing happened, she slowly opened her eyes and became aware of what was happening around her. Meanwhile, the Duke sat on the edge of the bed, thinking out loud that even if he did not go into eternal sleep today, tomorrow he would still want something to remain of him. After this, Amid made a sign that Selena should come to him. The main character was stunned and tried to understand what he was talking about and what he wanted from her. The young man repeated again that he had ordered her to come closer, because she had come here to give birth to a child from her husband, who could suddenly fall into eternal sleep. Selena knew the words were true, but she had never had any experience, and she felt a slight fear. The Duke asked if that very night had come, and the girl mentally noted that, yes, today was a good day for conception because the doctor said so. She understood that she had been taking vitamins all week and eating only food that was healthy for the future pregnancy. But the Duke spoke again, and Selena tried to comprehend his words until he suddenly grabbed her. He laid the girl on the bed and asked if she had been taught what lay ahead. Selena remembered that Amid's body was weak, and Camilla had told her never to put pressure on him, and if an attack occurred, to immediately call for help without causing overexcitement. She also understood that this was not a game, but a duty that she had to fulfill in order to conceive a child from the Duke. Amid said that his mother and Raymond sincerely wanted an heir. Therefore, the girl must act according to the training, and she silently accepted this. The Duke smiled and asked if she could do it. He claimed that her mother must have taught her how to behave around him. Selena thought he was just holding her, but she felt the full force of his presence. The young man asked if she had simply been pushed into his bedroom without any explanation beforehand. He placed his fingers on her neck, and the girl cautiously wondered if he wanted to put her into eternal sleep. But then Amid pulled back and noted that she was quite brave, if you think about it. Selena was in shock and recalled what she had been told about his illness. She pushed the Duke's hand away and asked him to stop, but he sat on the edge of the bed and said that there was no time to hesitate. Even if he goes into eternal sleep, his mother will find another girl. He said that Selena should stay, and she felt the urge to leave. But she understood that if she gave up now, everything would be lost, and she couldn't let that happen. She turned to the Duke, but he only asked if she had heard and again ordered her to leave. Selena fell to her knees, firmly declaring that she couldn't just leave. Today, she is obliged to spend the night with the Duke, and she must do it, otherwise her status will be in jeopardy. She remembered the clause in the contract that said disclosure of the agreement to third parties would result in a fine, so she kept silent about the details. But at the same time, she cried out that she had to fulfill her duty in order to be recognized as a real duchess. She was afraid of being thrown out because the Duke could choose another wife, and she had nowhere to go. If he wanted to send her into eternal sleep, let him do so. But it was still impossible to leave, and Selena thought that they could really put her into eternal sleep. The Duke drew his sword blade, and the girl screamed in fear, asking for salvation. Amid just sighed and smiled, asking how she even dared to enter the bedroom of a man she was seeing for the first time. Selena explained that she had brothers and sisters, and therefore she could not die. As the Duke swung his sword, she closed her eyes, expecting the worst, and the sound of a cut echoed through the room. It turned out that the Duke had cut himself, and Selena screamed in shock as she watched. He said that this was correct, and the girl could continue screaming because it was even beneficial for the environment. There were maids outside, and it was the newlyweds' first night, so it couldn't be too quiet, otherwise they would suspect something. The girl, stunned by what was happening, looked at Amid, trying to understand whether he was really pretending that they slept together only to create a false impression and did not intend to plunge her into eternal sleep. She could not understand the reasons for his actions, while the young man remained calm and determined. Amid took off his shirt, slowly sat down on the bed, and showed her how to tie it with this cloth, as if it was part of some ritual. The main character carefully fulfilled his request, but soon dared to ask why he needed it. He simply calmly asked if she really wanted to sleep with him, as if her answer was the key to further action. The young lady thought to herself that her question had nothing to do with that at all, and tried to explain her thoughts. Amid then only reminded her that she had been given the condition to bear a child from him because his mother was a duchess, and now he did not know what they had promised her, but she would not be able to achieve what she wanted. He suggested that the girl remain silent, since any attempts to change the situation would be in vain. At that moment, she wondered if he really wanted them to pretend to have a relationship without actually having any real intimacy. Amid nodded affirmatively, making it clear that this meant it was impossible for him to have a child. The young lady remembered her brothers and sisters and decided to turn to the Duke again, reminding him of his desire to have an heir. He explained that this was his mother's will. Seeing how his life was gradually fading away, she thought first of all about an heir. The Duchess herself found a girl without a family and sent her to the Duke, as if deciding that this was the most appropriate method. Selena realized that her request for life was a mistake because she was thinking only about herself, without taking into account Amid's suffering. She realized that the guy became the son of an unloved woman only for the sake of having an heir, and now the situation is extremely difficult. The girl, with tears in her eyes, realized how thoughtless she had been and what choice she now faced. Amid, seeing her tears, was surprised and asked why she was crying, not expecting such a display of emotion. Selena apologized inwardly, thinking that perhaps she was going crazy. The contract with the condition of having a child seemed overly cruel. She remembered her brother asking if he could go to school and then, as they ate delicious food, being surprised by her appearance and asking where it all came from. Now the young lady understood that she shouldn't be distracted by the past, but rather try to find a way to survive and ask the Duchess to terminate the contract. She realized that if she found herself in debt again, there would be no way out, and the whole situation was wrong. Selena begged Amida not to tell the Duchess what had happened, and he assured her that he had no such intention. The girl was surprised and wondered why he was doing this, because the situation might seem strange. Amida reminded her of his promise to remain silent, and this made her wonder about the motives of his actions. After all, the entire estate will think that there was real intimacy between them, although it was only an appearance. The main character agreed with this, but continued to ask why he was doing all this. Amid explained that if he didn't participate today, the woman would continue to slip girls into his bedroom, as if testing him. He added that this was just a way to avoid further problems and comply with formalities. The next morning, the maids discovered traces on the sheets and reported it to the Duchess. Because of this, the girl's contract remained in force and could not be terminated. But everyone got what they wanted, and that was the most they could do for her. Selena, looking at the contract, realized that the night had been terrible, full of fear and misunderstanding. However, the situation changed. The pressure from Camilla increased, and the girl realized that she had now become the villain of the novel. She understood that it was impossible to enter into eternal sleep in this way, and that there would definitely be a loophole in any agreement. The girl looked at the fine she faced for violating the terms, almost 5 billion, and was shocked. She couldn't believe she had signed such an unfair contract and now found herself in this situation. However, in the special conditions of the contract, there was a line stating that if the reason for continuing the contract disappeared, it could be terminated at the request of Party A. Selena realized that this was the only point that worked in her favor, and that it gave her a chance to resolve the situation. The solution was simple: make Camilla ask for a divorce first, and the girl was surprised to realize how easily everything could have been arranged. A little later, she approached a woman who asked if she wanted to see the young lady. Camilla confirmed that she called her to find out when to expect good news. Selena assured her that she was trying her best and asked her not to worry, surprised by the unexpected invitation and the growing tension. Camilla reported that Amid had had a fit, and rumors throughout the estate claimed that the girl had gone mad, and asked if she considered this a cause for concern. Selena knew it was a reaction to the return of memories, but she couldn't tell the woman the truth. Camilla emphasized that if a girl is unable to conceive due to a lack of care for her health, she should be fully reimbursed for the time and money spent. The young lady agreed and noted that all of this was written in the contract, although internally she wanted to say much more. Camilla asked what exactly, and Selena, a little nervously, admitted that she was ready to take on all the worries associated with her husband. The girl realized that she was taking such a step for the first time, and she understood that she had finally decided to act. The blonde clarified what exactly she meant, trying to understand her intentions. Selena admitted that she knows too little about her husband. For example, she wanted to understand what he was eating, whether he was walking enough, and when he got up so she could take care of him. Camilla was surprised and asked why she was interested in this. The young lady explained that until now it was Madame Camilla who had been caring for Amid, and that she had only sat next to him when he was unconscious, and was usually kept at a distance. At this point, the main character, with a slight smile, asserts that now she herself wants to take care of Amid's health, because he has become her husband and she feels responsible for him. The girl is a little embarrassed, realizing that this is the first time she has said the word husband, and this causes her slight anxiety and awkwardness. The woman quietly reminds him that he shouldn't say anything stupid, since Raymond is already taking excellent care of Amid's well-being, and asks why the girl needs this, adding that it's better to focus on her responsibilities. The young lady, slightly confused, replies that for the sake of pregnancy she will pay more attention to her health, understanding that it is not so simple, and if something does not work out, she is ready to immediately move to Plan B. The girl then adds that she is taking all the fertility pills that Raymond prescribed, following all the recommendations without exception. She finds it strange that there is still no result, since they have been married for 2 years, and she assumes that the problem may be in something else, not just her. The mother-in-law asks what exactly the reason is, and the young lady states that, in her opinion, the health of both spouses is important for successful conception, and asks whether the woman understands this. She explains that the health of the child's father is just as important as the health of the mother, as it directly affects the possibility of successful conception. The girl emphasizes that Raymond cannot know all the intricacies of their relationship, and that is why she tries to be attentive. The blonde is horrified and asks herself, hardly believing, whether the situation is really such that the hidden nuances of their family need to be taken into account. The young lady wants to hint that the reason may be her son's infertility, and this causes her inner turmoil and anxiety. However, the woman screams, claiming that this is impossible, because Raymond never said that this was the reason, which confuses the girl. The main character takes a deep breath, asking herself how Raymond can know this, since he is not Amid's wife and does not worry about his health so closely. She understands that only she can truly take care of her husband, because it is she who will have to protect him and monitor his condition. The young lady then gently places her hand on the woman's hand, showing trust and a willingness to talk about something important, which causes a slight tension. She explains that she previously worked as a caregiver to pay off her debts, and these skills made her experienced in caring for people. Moreover, she worked as a pharmacist's assistant, gaining knowledge about medications and care methods, which makes her able to assist Amid effectively. The girl asks to be allowed to take care of the child because she wants him more than anyone else, and the woman agrees, offering to try, which gives the heroine hope. Selena wonders if she really managed to get permission, and realizes that now all that remains is to figure out how to deal with Amid. The woman warns that if her son's condition worsens or suspicions arise about the girl's bad intentions, she will not forgive this and will severely punish him. The main character bows, confirming that she obeys, realizing that this is like a gamble, and since Camilla gave her a chance, she needs to take it. Selena realizes that her main goal now is to save Amid and do everything possible to keep him safe and healthy. A short time later, the maid blocks the girl's path to the Duke's chambers, explaining that he is currently resting, which irritates Selena. The main character gets angry and thinks to herself that this girl is really preventing her from fulfilling her plans, causing internal hostility. She slaps Emma's hand, which is blocking her way, and asks with determination if she came here not to her husband, but to the maid, asserting her purpose. The girl explains that the Duke does not like to be disturbed, and Selena understands that Emma is belittling her so because of her poor origin and her role in the house only for the birth of an heir. Now Selena decides that she will not tolerate this any longer and understands that it is time to act decisively, defending her rights and goals. The young lady states that if the maid continues to interfere, she will report it to her mother, causing the maid to become fearful and confused. The frightened maid asks if she is really going to talk about the headmistress, to which Selena confirms that this is indeed the case, since her mother entrusted her with the care of her son. The main character understands that this method may be controversial, but there is no other way out, and now she can only rely on Camilla's strength. The maid gives in, amazed by the girl's determination, and asks with difficulty if this is really so, showing that fear and respect have won out. The young lady realizes that the situation has resolved itself as expected and boldly knocks on the door of the room, where Amid invites her to enter. When she enters, she sees him sitting by the window, lost in thought, and notices how the light softly reflects on his face. Looking at him, the girl realizes that he is really very handsome, and this causes her a slight excitement and trepidation. The guy asks what she needs, and his tone is restrained, but there is a slight interest in it, causing Selena to smile. The main character addresses him by name with a smile, feeling the inner joy and lightness that her husband's presence brings. She asks if he will go for a walk with her, showing that she wants to spend time with him and take care of his health. The young man looks at her with disbelief, wondering if she has gone crazy, but remains quietly watching, trying to understand her intentions. Selena had anticipated this reaction, so she waited calmly, knowing that her actions were natural and logical. She explains that she simply wants to enjoy the good weather with her husband, as all newlyweds do, demonstrating care and attention. The guy asks if she said the word newlyweds, and the girl confirms, reminding him that they are indeed a married couple, not brother and sister. She raises her hand to him, noticing that he has turned pale, and asks if he is okay, showing concern for his condition. Amid replies that everything is fine, but Selena asks if he is absolutely sure, showing that her concern is sincere and constant. The blonde screams, asking the girl to leave him alone, showing irritation, but she remains calm. The young lady remains silent, realizing that she needs to give him time to get used to her attention and care without insisting on her own. The guy begins to doubt whether he overreacted, realizing that her actions are harmless and dictated by concern. The main character smiles, claiming that if everything is okay, then he can walk with her, demonstrating patience and confidence. The blonde wonders why they are suddenly walking together, not realizing that the girl is pursuing a caring goal. Selena explains that she is simply trying to promote his health, reminding him that sunlight and fresh air are essential for well-being. The guy comes closer, and the girl understands that this time she will not back down, despite her inner fear showing determination. She reports that she has received his mother's consent and will now take care of Amid's health, confidently taking responsibility and control over the situation. At this point, Amid only cries out, sensing that the young lady has conspired with his mother again. The girl wonders if he's truly ill, given his grip on her shoulder was incredibly strong. Meanwhile, the boy asks if she's decided to find another way to cope with the situation. He did not sleep with the young lady and did not tell his mother what they had agreed upon, keeping everything a secret. However, he still asks the question whether she still wants to have a child despite the circumstances. The main character replies that no, and it seems the guy misunderstood her words and intentions. When she removes Amid's hand, she suddenly feels a sharp pain, as if her hand was again reminded of the recent experience. The blonde man asks curiously what happened to his hand, and the girl remembers how hard he squeezed it during his illness and tries to find the words to explain it. The guy quickly guesses what she is thinking and asks her directly if it has anything to do with him. Selena admits that yes, the pain was caused by him squeezing her hand too hard, and she wonders inwardly if he still remembers it. Looking at Amid, she thinks that something is wrong with him. Usually he denies everything and distances himself, but now he looks different. The young lady notices a strange softness in his face and wonders if he really is sorry for hurting her. After this, she admits that the pain she experienced was very strong and left a mark. The guy anxiously asks if he has broken her arm completely. Selena replies that almost, and adds that it still hurts her to remember what happened. She then wonders how it is possible to grab a person by the hand, because she even turned blue, and Amid just remains silent, not giving an answer. The protagonist wonders if she's putting too much pressure on him with her words, but then claims that Raymond is helping her with her treatment, at which point Amid suddenly apologizes. Selena, not hearing what he said, looks at him in surprise, trying to understand the meaning of his words. The guy apologizes again and promises to be more careful in the future, as if realizing how much he hurt her. The main character is in shock. She certainly didn't expect to see such a reaction and gentleness on his part. She notices that his ears are slightly red and wonders if he can really be like this, soft and caring. The girl regrets that only she can see this side of Amida, but decides to use the moment to get closer. Selena decides to invite him for a walk again, not missing the opportunity to be near him. They walk outside together, enjoying the moment, as if the whole world has slowed down for the two of them. The girl notices how fresh the air is after yesterday's rain, which washed away all the road dust and made the atmosphere especially clean. The maids, noticing the master and mistress, are surprised and ask what was the reason for their walk together. At this point, the guy asks what the girl will get for going for a walk with him. Selena replies that it's nothing special and that she's just trying to take care of his health and support him. She recalls rumors that the couple's relationship was strained. The Duke hated his wife, and she married him for money. The young lady thinks how good it would be to rewrite their history so as not to repeat past mistakes and not find themselves in a dangerous situation. She admires the moonlit garden upon reaching it because it is the most beautiful place on the estate, and it evokes admiration in her. Selena suggests going there to enjoy the beauty of the garden and the tranquility of the evening. At that moment, a cat suddenly jumps out of the bushes, and the young lady is frightened by its unexpected appearance. She loses her balance and starts to fall backwards, realizing that she might hit something. At the last moment, Amid manages to grab her, preventing her from falling and possible injury. Selena thanks him silently, surprised by the unexpected support and not expecting him to pick her up. But then she looks at the cat and wonders if it is Noir, whom she hasn't seen in a long time. Amid asks who it is and if it is her pet, showing genuine curiosity. Selena explains that it is a cat from their estate, surprised that he could not know of its existence. The guy admits that he didn't even suspect that there was such a fat and dirty cat on the premises. The girl says that if you look closely, the cat is very cute and charming, worthy of attention. Amid warns that if she touches animals too often, she might catch some kind of infection from them. The young lady moves away from the cat, stands up, and agrees that perhaps he is right and it is better to avoid unnecessary health problems. She thinks that being careful won't hurt, because there's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself and your health. The blonde man checks to see if the cat's name is really Noir, asking her name. Selena confirms that this is true, because the cat is black, and the name perfectly suits her appearance. Amid remarks that the name seems too simple to him, but the young lady explains that the cat was originally called Chimney, which she thought was too much, so she changed the name. The guy sighs, adding that now the color of his fur looks as if he actually fell down a chimney. The main character watches her husband in shock and is surprised that he smiles, showing rare softness. She then asks herself if he is cold, concerned about his condition. At that moment, something gets into her eye, and she tries to get rid of the irritation herself. Amid notices this and asks her to wait without making any sudden movements. He comes closer, demonstrating unusual care and attention. Carefully removes whatever got into her eye, showing gentleness and precision. After this, he reports that everything is fine and nothing is bothering her eye anymore. The main character is confused, wondering what is happening to him, because first he saved her from falling, and now he is helping with this. She doesn't understand how he can be so caring towards her, because before it seemed like he was avoiding any kind of touch. The guy thinks that something is wrong with him, and the girl is surprised. Hasn't he pushed her away before? At this point, Amid starts coughing, and Selena becomes worried, asking if he is feeling unwell and if he is suffering. The young man simply suggests that he return, and the girl asks if he is having difficulty breathing and if there is pain in his chest, showing genuine concern. Amid said that everything was fine and told her not to worry, after which the guy remained silent and they returned home, deciding to go for a walk again tomorrow. He couldn't understand why the girl was so confident, because he never promised to walk with her every day. Selena claimed that she had already told him that she would take care of his health, and that daily walks had a positive effect on his condition. However, Amid only asked why she needed this attention and care at all. The girl wondered if he was angry, and then reminded him that fresh air was necessary for his health. Amid was skeptical about her words and demanded that she stop talking nonsense. But Selena insisted that she was sincere and that she truly cared about him. The guy then doubted whether there was any sincerity in their relationship. The girl thought that this was true and explained to herself that she was doing this to improve their relationship, after which she decided to clarify his opinion. She wondered why he didn't believe her words and constantly doubted everything she did. Amid replied that this was because he knew about the agreement made between her and his mother and the reason for her presence near him. Selena was surprised that he really knew all the conditions and asked if he really thought he knew everything. The blonde man said that the girl would be obliged to pay if she married a man who could die at any moment and gave birth to his child. The main character realized that there was nothing to argue about because it was the truth and enough to condemn her actions. Amid admitted that he felt bad that she had suddenly stuck to him so much and that it irritated him. He didn't care that Selena was tied to money and took on such a pathetic role. Then the girl clenched her fist and noted that he knew how to express his thoughts beautifully, and his mental pain seemed hundreds of times stronger than physical pain. After this, Selena exclaimed that he was clearly not quite right in the head. The guy just remained silent, not answering with a word. The girl loudly declared that if a person says something, he needs to be listened to, and she acts for his sake. She wondered if he wanted her to have a child with him, because the thought of a child from such a rude man seemed strange to her. Selena grabbed Amid's hand and said that it was time for them to return to the house because he couldn't catch a cold. But suddenly, the girl felt a sharp pain in her arm and screamed in surprise. Amid immediately asked what happened and if she was in pain. The main character replied that no, she had simply forgotten about the minor injury and that everything was fine. The blonde took her hand to look at the bandage and make sure everything was okay. He noticed that the bandage had loosened slightly, and Selena wondered if he was apologizing again. The more she gets to know Amida, the more she realizes that she knows almost nothing about him, and yet she feels that the care in his actions is sincere and gentle, even in simple touches and glances. The girl realized that now she would need to take care of her hand and use it wisely. At that moment, the guy asked in surprise if she was really forgetting about her injury, and Selena asked why it was important. Amid exclaimed how she could forget about the injury to her hand, showing her concern. The girl realized that his concern for her was real and sincere. The guy finished the bandage and said that now they could move on. He also asked her not to do such stupid things again, so as not to put herself in danger. A little later, they were already returning to the estate, walking quietly along the paths. When Selena entered her room, she was greeted by a maid with shining eyes, clearly surprised and happy. Rona reported that she saw everything that happened and had to run several errands, and Selena asked what exactly she saw. The girl admitted that she saw herself and the Duke kissing in the moonlit garden, and that moment stuck in her memory. The young lady remembered him gently pulling something out of her eye and immediately realized that perhaps there had been a misunderstanding. At this time, the maid claimed that she thought about the girl only in front of the bedroom, but in fact, everything was much more serious than it seemed. The main character asked if it really looked like that, and the maid confirmed that it did, and swore that all the maids were already discussing this moment. Selena wondered what was so interesting about this, although she was even pleased that from the outside everything seemed so harmonious and correct. Rona said that the lady had been through so many trials and now everything had turned out perfectly, because the two of them got along so well. The main character realized that the maid always supports her, and it is no exaggeration to say that Rona is her faithful ally in the house. The young lady realized that their meeting was unusual, and the maid was different from the other maids in her attitude and care. She herself saved the girl from the slave market, protected her from her father, who wanted to sell his own daughter, and thus showed true care. That's why Rona always remained on her side, while the other maids treated their mistress with coldness and disdain. And now the young lady turned to the maid, claiming that even if she had to leave the estate, she would take care of the wedding with Robert and help with the house. After this, the maid became very embarrassed and asked how the mistress knew all this. The main character thought that doesn't everyone know this, and decided to explain. She admitted that she had found out by accident but reassured Rona that she would not tell anyone anything and would not reveal the secret. Then Selena lay down on the bed, saying that she would rest a little, because the day had been exhausting and she needed a break. Rona reminded her that Dr. Raymond had been looking for the mistress, and it would have been a good idea to mention it right away. Selena agreed, noting that she'd managed to do so before she went to bed. The main character still asked why he wanted to see her, and the maid admitted that she didn't know. Perhaps it was because the mistress looked different a few weeks ago. At that moment, there was a knock on the door. The man introduced himself as Raymond, and the girl realized that he had arrived just in time. After this, the man entered the room, greeted the lady, and asked how she was feeling, to which the girl replied that she felt well and was healthy. He expressed joy that everything was in order, but emphasized that the roads needed to be checked regularly and asked permission to inspect her if she did not object. The main character noted that the man always made a good impression, and replied that, of course, he could examine her. He confirmed that everything was fine, but reminded her that last time she got caught in the rain and looked very tired, which made him take notice. So he took out a bottle of medicine and recommended taking it for a while to restore strength and maintain health. The main character agreed and noted that the man speaks calmly and quietly and knows how to win over anyone he is talking to. Even for Camilla, he became one of the few people she trusted, thanks to his tactful and attentive nature. Now, it seemed to the young lady that this man might be connected with Amid's immersion into eternal sleep, and this worried her. No matter how much she thought about it, she still couldn't understand how Amid's poisoning could have happened, and who could have set her up. The girl guessed that someone could have added poison to food or medicine, but she had never had the opportunity to touch these things before. Only someone with the same authority and level of trust as she did, and who was respected the most, could do this. The man again asked the lady about her condition, and the girl replied that everything was fine, since she was already taking infertility medication. Now, there was another worry added to the mix, and she wondered if it wasn't too much for her to handle all at once. The guy said he understood her concerns, but reminded her that she needed to take care not only of her husband, but also of herself. Otherwise, she wouldn't have enough strength. The young lady agreed, noting that she wanted to discuss with him an urgent matter concerning the conception and health of the future child. The man asked if it was really urgent and said that he had not noticed any signs of pregnancy during the examination. But the girl insisted on the important question. She explained that there were extremely important details that he needed to know, which concerned not only her condition, but also her husband's health. The man then pulled out some medical supplies, saying that he might have missed something and needed to do another check to be sure. The girl replied that the problem was not with her, but with her husband, and that this required special attention. Raymond asked if they were talking about the Duke, and Selena confirmed that they were, adding that she wanted to know more about his illness. She also wanted to understand if there were any symptoms or signs that she should be aware of so that she could help her husband in a timely manner. In addition, it was important for her to know whether he had any serious abnormalities in his body that required monitoring or treatment. The doctor assured her that there were no problems, but the young lady insisted on knowing all the medical indications, medications, and diet in full. She emphasized that this is necessary for thorough care and take timely measures if necessary. The man asked why she suddenly became so concerned about her husband's health, noticing his unusual attention to detail. The main character explained that she realized how careless she had been about his condition before, and now she wants to be more attentive and caring. The man tries to say something, but Selena turns to Raymond as if seeking support and advice. She feels unsure and admits to herself that she doesn't know whether to talk, as it's an extremely delicate topic. The situation is complicated by the fact that Amid's behavior in bed has changed and is not at all like what he was before. It's difficult for her to talk about this because it concerns the most intimate moments, which she rarely admits to anyone. Raymond reassures her, saying that when he examined the Duke, he did not notice anything unusual and there was no reason to worry. Selena insists that he cannot know all the details, because only she, as a wife, sees the true state of affairs. The man apologizes to the young lady for his previous arrogance and promises to pay more attention to her words. Selena reflects on how Raymond was able to gain her mother's trust and admits that his words truly give her strength. She insists that he tell her everything that is important for Amid's health. Raymond agrees without objection, understanding how important this is for her and for the Duke. After some time, already tired, he leaves the young lady's room, leaving her in her thoughts. When the maid enters, she notices Selena's cheerful mood and wonders what has caused such a change. Selena explains that she has discussed Amid's diet with Raymond and is now going to meet with the chef to finalize the details. The maid asks if the mistress would like to go into the kitchen to personally see the cooking process. Selena agrees and invites Rona to come with her, wanting to share this moment. However, noticing the concern on the maid's face, she asks what is causing her concern, trying to understand her feelings. Rona explains that Chef Jean is truly a master of his craft, but has a fearsome reputation that intimidates many. Upon entering the kitchen, the girls notice a burning smell and feel stuffy, as if the room is not properly ventilated. Selena asks what happened, and the maid admits that she has difficulty breathing, and she did not expect such an atmosphere in the Duke's kitchen. The main character admits that she had not previously been interested in household chores, so she was unaware of such peculiarities of the premises. Suddenly, someone comes up from behind and demands to know who they are, creating a sense of danger. Turning around, Selena sees a man with a knife and immediately feels threatened, causing her to suddenly feel afraid. She screams, startled by the unexpected appearance, but the situation quickly diffuses. After some time, the three of them are already sitting at the table, and the chef apologizes for the misunderstanding, explaining that it is rare for anyone to come to the kitchen, and he mistook them for thieves. He could not have imagined that the young lady herself would want to personally discuss cooking matters with him. Selena notices that the man has become much softer and calmer, although he used to be stern and unfriendly. The cook asks why they came, showing interest in their visit. The girl explains that she wants to discuss Amid's diet and find out which dishes are healthy for him. The man asks if he's talking about the Duke's diet, to which Selena confirms and asks to see the current menu. Selena carefully examines the dishes the Duke eats, noting that the food is healthy, easy to digest, and not heavy, but it lacks animal protein. So she wonders if the chef created the menu himself, wanting to understand his approach to nutrition. The man explains that he doesn't create the menu, but that after it's compiled for the week, Raymond reviews it and makes adjustments. He adds that the Duke is weak and his digestion isn't perfect, so they mostly prepare light dishes. The chef asks if there are any comments or problems with the diet so that they can be taken into account in the future. Selena replies that there are no problems and notes that the chef does an excellent job, demonstrating skill and care. She points out that people still need to eat meat, which slightly surprises the man, who was not expecting such a comment. The girl explains that without enough protein, you won't feel full, especially considering the appetite of debutantes who require more energy. She also thinks about Amida, and her thoughts suddenly return to him, making her wonder why this image appears in her head right now. The chief inquires about Duke Amid's condition, and the girl explains that he once commanded the Knights of the Sun, which means he is a strong man with a strong physique who needs to eat more densely. She is confident that the chef will cope and be able to prepare a light but nutritious meat dish that will not be heavy on the stomach. The man carefully notes that a sudden change in diet could have a negative effect on the Duke's body, which is why Raymond advised against rushing. However, the girl is convinced that the chef is capable of handling the task and preparing a healthy and simple dish, because he is a true culinary master. The man, encouraged, agrees that it is worth trying and expresses his readiness to begin work with enthusiasm. The main character feels like she quickly became friends with Jean, and together they began to think up a new menu specifically for Amid, discussing every detail. They also cooked together, and later came up with the idea of improving the kitchen, since the nobility hid it in the basement, and John found himself in a situation where he had almost no choice. But the girl still doesn't understand why nobles want to eat gourmet food, but don't appreciate the work of the cook, and don't care about cleanliness around them. Having decided to take responsibility into her own hands, she plans to move the kitchen to a more dignified and spacious place, where everything will be properly organized. The young lady informs Jean that she will be responsible for moving the kitchen to a clean and spacious space, and will also help him manage the budget for purchasing ingredients. The man, slightly shocked, asks if the girl is really serious about such changes. The girl insistently explains to Camilla that cleanliness is critical to cooking and to Amid's health, and this cannot be ignored. Eventually, the woman agrees with her arguments, realizing that the changes will benefit everyone. The main character, with a plate of food, realizes that big changes, as they say, are built gradually, and there's no need to rush. After this, she brings Duke Amida a special dish that she and Jean prepared together, carefully selecting the ingredients. The guy looks at the plate with a bit of disbelief, but the girl calmly places it in front of him, assuring him that they put maximum effort into preparing it. The dish combines healthy ingredients while remaining light and filling, so the Duke could enjoy it without any harm to his health. Amida is a little embarrassed by the silence, but he swallows, and the girl notices that the food looks appetizing and asks this question mentally. He dips his spoon into the soup, but the maid warns him that it's best to wait before eating to make sure it's safe. She reminds people to check their food to see if it contains anything dangerous, and she insists on it. Rona objects, saying that the young lady has already personally checked all the dishes, having tasted them beforehand. The main character agrees with this, but emphasizes that safety rules have not been cancelled, and it is important to ensure safety. She adds that even so, Amid's health cannot be risked, and everything must be under control. It is gratifying that Emma is so responsible, loyal to her duties, and continues to carry them out carefully, without losing attention to detail. The girl is silent for a while, and then restrainedly agrees with the need for verification. She apologizes and holds out a silver wand to check the food before serving it to the Duke. The Duke assures that he will not bother, and will simply try the dish without worrying about inspections. The maid was momentarily at a loss as to what to do, but the girl continued with a slight smile. She argues that it's better to be safe than sorry, and asks Emma if it's really worth checking the dish. Emma thanks for her understanding and agrees to be tested, fulfilling her duty. When the chopstick touched the food, it confirmed that the dish was safe and did not contain anything dangerous. After this, the Duke calmly begins his meal, feeling confident in the prepared dish. After trying the first dish, he is slightly surprised and takes another spoonful, appreciating the taste and quality of the food. The main character realizes that their efforts were not in vain, and the dish really turned out delicious and worthy of pride. After some time, the plates were empty, and the girl noticed that the Duke ate everything very quickly. She happily notes this and suggests taking a walk so that the food can be better digested and the Duke can rest after the meal. The man is slightly surprised but still agrees and rises from his seat, ready for a walk. Suddenly, Emma exclaims that the Duke cannot go, which surprises the girl. The main character is puzzled and tries to understand what happened this time and why this situation arose. The Duke asks why he is forbidden to go out, not understanding the reasons for such a sudden restriction. The maid sheepishly explains that he needs to take his medicine first, otherwise the walk is impossible. The girl notices that this maid is usually not very friendly and wonders why she has now become more strict. She presents the Duke with pills and insists that he take them, following the established safety rules. The man follows the instructions, and the girl thinks that she hasn't tried these drugs yet and it wouldn't hurt to be careful. She decides to discuss the matter with Raymond to ensure the safety of the drugs for the Duke. The man gives her a list of all the medications the Duke takes so she can understand their composition. Thanks to her experience working in a pharmacy, the girl easily understands. The medications are simple, including tranquilizers and high-quality herbs that are safe for the Duke's health. The man then asked if something was wrong, and the young woman asked if there was an energy-lowering drug among the medications. The girl understood that she was actually interested in the fatal outcome, but she couldn't arouse suspicion. Raymond replied that there was nothing of the sort, and the young lady thought that she should end her questioning there. After all, in the original story, she poisoned her husband, so she should be more careful when asking about medicines. The maid asks what the young lady is looking at, and the girl replies, nothing. She understands that the composition of the preparations is impeccable, but there's no guarantee that they were made from the specified ingredients. At this time, the guy approaches Selena and asks what she is doing. And also, would they go for a walk? Selena realizes that every time she sees him, the guy looks so charming. After which the girl simply replies that, of course they will go. She also understands that if it weren't for his personality, this guy would be perfect. But turning around and looking at the maid, the main character understands that in any case, she absolutely must get these medications. And sometimes she gets goosebumps, so the girl wonders if it is hatred or jealousy. After that, they head to the garden, but suddenly, something flies near the guy. And he claims that it only seems like a big piece of dust flew by. The young lady is wondering what he is talking about. After which he sees a cat and says that it is Noir. The girl also turns to the Duke and asks how one can call a cat dust if its paws are so clean. And the young lady says that he is a good cat and is secretly hiding in this big mansion. The Duke then asks what the young lady means by hiding. At this time, she only remembers how the cook screamed that this thieving cat stole food again and ran away, after which she claims that she thought this cat lived in their estate, but it turned out that it did not. The guy is looking at the cat at this time, and the young lady is wondering if he is really going to kick him out because he is dirty and contagious. That's why now she claims that she will find a place for him, so the guy shouldn't drive him away just yet. The guy then looks at the cat, which meows pitifully, after which he asks if the girl will do this if he asks her to throw out this cat. After all, it seems that she cares about her so much, but these are just words. She cannot even vouch for herself, and then there is this burden. The main character replies that she will take full responsibility for Noir, and at this time the cat just starts rubbing against her dress, and the girl screams that it's not allowed. After all, if the cat does this, it will stain her clothes and add trouble to the maids. At this time, the guy asks why the young lady is worried about this, and the girl understands that this is because this was one of her few part-time jobs before arriving at the estate, and she knows how hard it is to wash and also prepare white and warm clothes for wearing. And besides, the maids will notice this and will ask if the young lady has too many clothes to wash. The Duke at this time says that this is their job and what they are paid for, so why is the girl afraid that the Duchess's clothes will get dirty? The young lady replies that it is not that she is afraid and thinks that the guy can understand this. At this time, the cat just approaches the Duke and begins to disappear at his leg. and the main character screams that it is impossible. After which, she picks up the cat and says that there are germs on him. And the Duke at this time says that the girl touches him everywhere, and this is incredible care. However, the young lady then cries out who she is worried about. But at this time, the Duke is shocked to notice that there is a snake near the young lady. And the girl wonders why he reacted that way and whether she has crossed the line again. But at the same moment, she feels something cold and slippery. After which, everyone sees a snake in front of them and begins to panic. The Duke then tells Selena not to move and to stand still. After which he grabs the snake, and the girl, in shock, says that this is dangerous, but after that, the guy just finishes off the snake. The young lady looks at her hand and thinks what it was, and apparently she was very lucky because the snake really could have bitten her hand. The Duke at this time apologizes for frightening her and asks if her arm hurts, but the young lady replies that everything is fine. After which, in shock, he asks if the guy is okay, because this snake is too big for a striped snake and its fangs are so huge. Well, after that, he just smirks and says that it turns out he has a row of bite marks on his left hand. After which, the main character at that very moment grabs his hand and asks where the bite is, because she needs to call Raymond right now. However, after this, the guy only starts laughing, and the young lady screams that she is really worried and why is he making fun of her. However, after this, the Duke laughs out loud, and the main character wonders if this man can really laugh so sincerely. Well, at that very moment, the girl sees a piece of her dress fly off, and the Duke says that it looks like her dress is ruined. The young lady at the same moment covers the place where the dress flew off with her hands and asks if it is because of Noir. And the Duke then begins to take off his shirt, after which she puts it on the young lady. And he himself remains half naked. And a little while later, the main character is already sitting with the Duchess over a cup of tea. The woman asks if the girl wants to say that they were caught in an indecent state. And the girl thinks, what kind of conversation is this? After which the blonde screams, has she really lost all shame, and what will people think? The main character replies that it's just a misunderstanding. However, the woman screams that this happens again and again. And what would they do if the guy had a seizure from a snake bite? The girl replies that it was an accident and she could not have foreseen it. However, the mother-in-law then screams at her to give up unnecessary walks, because trusting her was her mistake, so let the girl stop all this right now. A short time later, the maid combs the young lady's hair. She then remarks that the mistress has fingernail marks there. And the main character replies that Amid probably caught her when he was removing the snake from her. But the maid simply replies, what passion is this? But before, the guy never left a single scratch on her body, even on the wildest nights. So now the young lady turns to her mother and tells her to look at this scratch that her son left on her. The woman then asks why you are doing this to him, and asks the main character who knows, because hasn't he become more energetic? The girl also says that he is sick but so strong, and the girl talks about it with embarrassment. And the Duchess asks if this is really so, since she never taught her son such things. The main character replies that, of course, his mother did not teach him such rude courtship. However, isn't it the result of her diet and exercise that puts an end to everything overnight because of such a minor mistake? And the girl says that she didn't even know that her mother was such a person, so she is a little disappointed. At this time, the woman asks what she means by disappointed. And the main character replies that, of course, she doesn't think that this is only her mother's will, because it's obvious that someone is making her doubt. Selena understands that while she had time to wash and change clothes, someone had already passed the news to Camilla, because the garden in which they were walking was quite far from the building where Camilla was, and if she found out about everything so quickly, someone was watching them all this time. The girl now asks if this is not true, and the woman asks who would dare to make her doubt. After which, the young lady replies that this is possible if she introduces a person to her for surveillance. And after this, the woman screams out why she needs this. After which, the main character replies that it is true, and a graceful, educated mother could not have committed such a vulgar act. The girl also claims that she trusts her, so the trained mother will also believe her, saying that today's incident is nothing more than a minor incident and that she will be more careful in the future. The woman then says that in any case, the astrologer said that in order to give birth to a son, one must unite on the day when Jupiter's energy is strongest, so the girl should be careful. And the main character then replies that it's fine, but she herself understands that there is only one person who could have reported everything to Camilla. At this time, Rona enters the main character's room and tells the mistress that the maid has brought a cure for infertility and it's time for her to take it. The main character then realizes that the person who is fixing everything is the owner of the great power and the main maid, Greta. The girl then takes medication and thinks that no matter how much she drinks, she cannot get used to this bitter taste. And she feels guilty for taking all these drugs to conceive, even though she has never slept with the Duke. Well, now the young lady looks at the maid and thinks that usually she runs away immediately after making sure that Selena has taken all the medicine, and is she really watching how it works? The woman then claims that she wants to talk to the mistress. The young lady then replies with a smile on her face that she is listening. The maid then claims that the girl gave the cook the order to manage the budget autonomously. And the main character replies that this is true, but the woman then also says that the girl said that it is possible to buy products and ingredients without her permission. Selena replies that this is indeed the case, after which she asks if there is any problem with this. The woman claims that all expenses for running the estate are the responsibility of the head maid, and that it is her responsibility and duty. The main character replies that this is true and she knows how difficult it is for the head maid, after which she asks how it can be easy to manage all the affairs in such a huge mansion alone. The woman then asks why the young lady didn't speak to her, but the girl replies that she's already discussed it with her mother. The protagonist understands that Camilla herself gave her the right to decide, and does the maid really think she can change anything? Greta replies that she heard about it, but asks if the girl really ordered the kitchen to be moved too. The protagonist replies that it's hard for Greta to run the household alone, so she should let Jean take full responsibility for the kitchen. However, the young lady also wonders why the maid is so interested in this. And the woman at this time replies that she obeys only Madame Camilla. And the young lady replies that it was she who allowed her to take care of her husband's health on her own. Selena understands that the maid's intentions are obvious, but now she says that if creating good conditions for the cooks who prepare food for her husband is such a problem, then she will go to her mother and tell her about it right now. The maid remains silent in response to this, and the main character understands that she must not be used to this, and Greta is exerting incredible psychological pressure. And also, if we add to this the strength that her mother endowed her with, it becomes clear why Selena was always afraid to object to her. But all this is in the past. So now the young lady says, "What if the maid is finished?" And the woman then replies, "Yes, she understands the mistress, and now she'll go." And the young lady wonders if the maid interrupted her mid-sentence, after which she turns to her and asks if it was really she who told her mother about the incident with the snake. But the woman replies that she does not understand what the girl is talking about, and at that moment she was far from the garden. The young lady then replies that it is clear and then the woman can go, but she thinks that this is true, and she does not know who reported this to Camilla. But that means there is another person acting against her. So now the young lady sits down in the chair and sighs, and Rona exclaims, "What an impudent headmaid this is, she only respects Madame Camilla." The young lady then replies that she is who she is, and the girl understands that all she can do is pretend to be an innocent lamb in front of her mother and ignore Greta. Well, the young lady does realize that she still seems to feel the bitter taste of the medicine, but then she still remembers the medicine that was given to the Duke and realizes that it does not give her peace. At this time, Rona turns to the lady and asks if something is bothering her, so let the lady tell her about it, and maybe she can help somehow. However, the main character replies that this is impossible, after which the maid, with tears in her eyes, turns to their mistress and asks if she is really completely useless. And the young lady asks what Rona is talking about. That's not what she meant at all. The maid then says that the mistress has become more confident and decisive, so she wants to help her somehow, because he wants the lady to become the mistress of this house, and the young lady then asks why. And Rona replies that the lady saved her, and that means that her life belongs to her. The main character then recalls how once a month she was given the opportunity to leave the mansion to visit her younger sisters. and one of those days she saw a girl being dragged by her hair, after which she ordered the coachman to follow them. The place where the cart arrived turned out to be a slave market frequented by debtors. The protagonist gradually saved money for her family and eventually exchanged it for Rona. The girl claimed she bought it because she needed a maid, so she begged to give her a few more coins. The young lady realized that this was probably the first and last time she asked Camilla for anything. The girl also thought that the servants and maids of the estate would resist this singing, since they all have good origins, but everything turned out differently. And besides, Camilla gave her more money so that she could send it to her family, and even now the main character thinks that this was very unexpected on her part. So now the main character simply tells the girl to thank her mother, because if she hadn't allowed it, nothing would have happened. The maid then replies that it was her mistress who saved her anyway. That's why now she says with tears in her eyes that she really wants to help her. And the main character then says that if that's the case, then she still wants to ask Rona for something. A little while later, the maid enters the mistress's room, and handing over the medicine, she says that she got them. The main character then replies that it is incredible, and she didn't think that Rona would succeed, after which she asks how the girl did it. And the maid replies that it is Robert who gets these medicines from Dr. Raymond, so it is a secret. The main character then turns to the maid in shock and asks if the guy really did something to her. And after that, the girl just gets embarrassed and replies that no, and she just kissed the guy on the cheek, which made him lose consciousness. The young lady then asks if this is true about the maid, and she replies that yes, and they are keeping themselves under control. But then she asks what the mistress will do with these medicines, after which Selena replies that now she is going to go somewhere and asks the maid to prepare the carriage. After which the main character sets off on a journey and realizes that there is one person she must definitely meet. A little while later, the girl enters the pharmacy, and after knocking on the door, she asks for forgiveness and goes in. The young lady realizes that nothing has changed there, after which she sees the owner of the pharmacy. The man then greets her and is a little surprised, as it's Selena, who once worked for him. The girl then asks if the man is doing well, and Walter wonders how many years have passed since the girl worked there. And the man also claims that no matter how drunk he was, he still remembers the young lady. But she looks much better, and the calluses on my hands have gone away, and there are no new wounds. The main character understands that even though he drinks a lot, his eyesight is good. At this point, the man suggests getting down to business and asks why she suddenly needed him, after which the young lady looks at the man. But he only claims that this is very useful water infused with several types of herbs, and the young lady asks if his wife forbade him to sing. Walter then agrees, but says that it is a healing infusion, not alcohol. The young lady then replies that it is clear and suggests closing the topic, after which he hands over the medicine and asks him to check it. The man then asks if the girl means that you want to find out what it is made of, and the young lady replies that yes, she even has a recipe. The man then replies that although she has a recipe, the girl still asks me to check and apparently does not trust the manufacturer. The main character then replies that she just wants to be sure, and the doctor then agrees and suggests doing so. After which the man eats this medicine, and the young lady then screams for him to wait. The girl then realizes that he doesn't even know if it's drinkable. The man claims that he doesn't know who this medicine is intended for, but it seems that this person is very dear to her because the drug is quite unusual and matches the prescription perfectly. The young lady then asks if this is true, and Walter then asks if he wouldn't have immediately fallen into eternal sleep if the medicine had been poisoned. The girl then replies that that would be too obvious. The man then replies that it is true, after which he asks her if she thinks that someone could have mixed a small amount of poison into the medicine so that the effect would not be too noticeable. The young lady replies that, and more precisely, so that the result would not arouse suspicion. The pharmacist then says that in any case, this medicine is not intended for treatment and is simply a very strong painkiller. Then he also says why he is so thirsty. The young lady, looking at the bottle, says it's not water, after which the pharmacist says he's been caught. He also claims he made it recently and that it contains a lot of useful stuff, so it can be considered medicine. And the young lady says that it is alcoholic. Well, the man says that it was not so simple, because he removed the toxicity of alcohol and doubled the goal's strong effect, and he is also full of energy both day and night. That's why you can't buy it anywhere else. But at that very moment, his wife comes into the pharmacy and says that if the medicine is so healing, he should let her try it too. The man then asks in shock if it is really Lily, and the woman says that they haven't seen Selena for a long time, and also apologizes for that incident, because she kicked the girl out because she got very angry. The main character realizes that she mixed the medicine while Walter was at the racetrack, and if she were in Lily's place, she would also be angry. So now the young lady claims that she was also wrong, and also says that it is a little late, so she better go, and then says that it was nice to see you. The woman then says that so much time has passed and suggests that the girl take at least a hotel, since this drunkard for some reason made a lot of healing tea. After this, the man, almost with tears in his eyes, doesn't even know what to say. And a little while later, the maid asks the mistress what it is, after which the young lady replies that these are gifts. A little while later, the girl arrives at the mansion, and Camilla asks where she went. The young lady then recalls how she gave the coachman the gold coins, and told him not to tell anyone about it. But now, the girl finally understands that he betrayed her anyway. So now the young lady replies that she was on her way to the pharmacy, and that her mother already knows about it. But the woman says that if the girl needed medicine, she should have told Raymond, and she asks why the young lady went herself. The main character replies that she decided to find out about fertility pills because there are rumors that the drugs made there are very effective. But the woman then screams, is the girl really going to drink medicine prepared by some charlatan? After all, Dr. Raymond is one of the best. However, the young lady replies that this man is not a charlatan, but a pharmacist, and besides, she took the medications that Raymond prescribed and never gave birth to a normal child. So now the young lady replies that taking care of Amit's health is wonderful, but she thought it was worth taking care of herself too. However, the girl also asks why her mother is watching her, and that it is somehow disrespectful. But after this, the woman will only choke on her tea, and he asks what the girl just said. The young lady then realizes that she now has nowhere to retreat. That's why she now claims that she asked why her mother was watching her. But the woman then replies that no, and that's not what she meant. After which the main character asks if the woman is bothered by the word disrespectful. After which she asks if spying on another person is not disrespectful or if she is wrong. And besides, these words aren't addressed to her personally. After all, does her mother have any reason to keep an eye on her? The protagonist understands that being able to shame is an important skill for communicating with Camilla, and the woman at this time claims that she didn't say where she was going. The young lady then replies that the purpose of going out may not always be to visit family, and her mother herself allowed her to go out, so she went and returned, after which the girl asks what the problem is. And the woman replies that nothing happened, after which the young lady says that she has decided not to take this medicine after all. After all, as her mother advised, she decided to trust Dr. Raymond, and the girl also says that she was so stupid. The young lady now understands that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because both family members look the same. It even takes her breath away. At this time, the maid comes into the room and says that she has prepared the tea that the mistress spoke about. The main character then says the tea is delicious and asks if Greta brewed it. The woman replies, yes. And Camilla says that this is certainly true, because she has no equal in this skill. The main character then, with a smile on her face, replies that, of course, they say again, like mistress, like maid. And since the woman has been serving her mother since her wedding day, she must have learned a lot from her. After which the young lady turns to Greta and says that she is very lucky because she was taken under the wing of a lady who understands her talents well and can reveal them. The maid then thanks the young lady for the praise, and the young lady replies that this is nonsense, and that Greta serves her mother so faithfully, fulfilling all her orders. The woman then replies that it's her job and smirks. And the young lady wonders if she really dares smirk even in front of Camilla. The young lady also thinks that this maid is the only one who can control the coachman, and she cannot take away the power that Camilla gave her. That's why he puts a spoke in her wheel so that the girl gives in. Now the young lady says that work on Jean's new kitchen is almost finished, and now he will be able to cook for Amid in a more comfortable environment. So now the young lady thanks her mother, but the woman claims that this matter concerns her son, so Selena has nothing to thank her for. Well, from now on, let the girl watch her language. The main character then replies that it is true, and she forgot herself a little, because everyone must obey the established rules, and probably there were those who did not like it. Therefore, it must be difficult for them to follow the directions, after which the young lady asks Greta if this is true, and the woman replies that it is possible. The young lady then claims that last time she talked a lot about moving the kitchen, but today she is silent, and she knows very well when it's appropriate to remain silent. And of course that's the reason why her mother is so protective of her. After which the young lady rises from the table and says that she will probably go to Amid. After all, he must have been bored without her all day. So she goes into her husband's room, but he just says that she's probably tired of pretending, and the young lady asks what he's talking about. The girl wonders why he looks especially sad today. After which he says that he thinks he was bored without her. Well, the guy just remains silent in response to this, and the main character thinks that if he is lonely, then he should just say so, otherwise he just sits there all the time looking out the window. However, the guy then turns to the young lady and asks what she is looking at like that, and didn't he tell her to stop? The girl then thinks about what she is doing, and whether she is really plunging people into eternal sleep with her gaze. However, the young man then only says that his mood is getting worse, and the girl wonders what her fault is. The guy then claims that she is staring like that again. And the young lady cries out, "What kind of reproaches are these?" Because wherever her gaze falls, there she looks. And he has such a handsome face, but his character is just a nightmare. The girl also understands that no one will spit in the face of someone who finds him attractive, and why is this guy picking on her? But after this, the young man only turns around, and the main character then asks if this is the first time he hears this, and thinks why the guy looks as if he is embarrassed, because it looks like his ears are red. The young lady realizes that the boy is the youngest knight commander of the empire. The title alone attracts many girls, and if he had not fallen ill, he would have married a beautiful girl from a noble family, and not an impoverished noblewoman, desperately maintaining her status by paying off countless debts. At this time, the guy only asks why she is interested in this, but the young lady claims that this is impossible, because if he has ever been in an elevator with a lady, then let him tell her, and after all, for the first time he has had at least a little fun. The guy then says that no one else would praise him so openly anyway. The girl replies that it's true, but the ability to express one's opinion directly is also a talent. The young man asks what does he have to do with it, and what other talent he has. But the main character then, with an expression similar to his, tells the guy to get lost, and the young man is a little puzzled as to what she is doing. The young lady then says that she hopes that someday he will learn to be polite, but she is happy with everything as it is, so he shouldn't avoid the conversation. The guy is then a little surprised but remains silent, and then the girl says that he should answer if he misses her. However, the young man simply tells her not to talk nonsense. The main character asks how much longer he'll deny it, but the guy insists that he already told her, so she should stop talking nonsense. The young lady claims that because of that incident today, they dug up the entire garden in order to get rid of the snakes, but she couldn't even go for a walk, so the guy tells her to stop. And he says that since nothing worked out with the walk, then nothing will work out, and she can go. However, the young lady then puts her hand on his and suggests that they just sit there and talk. After which the girl tells the guy to tell her about the Knights of the Sun, because he caught that snake so deftly. And the young man says that he has been on the battlefield since childhood. Selena asks what he did when there were no wars, and the guy replies that he was mainly in the residence of the Knights, and it is located to the east of the Imperial Palace. The young lady then says that the guy is really an incredible person. After all, the Knights of the Sun are the best warriors of the Empire, and their commander is the most honorable position of all possible. And the young lady says that she has heard of His Majesty's trust in the knight, very great. And Amid says that it seems the young lady is interested in royal affairs, but he has nothing to say about it, and probably they have already forgotten about him, so they might remember when the obituary comes out. The main character then says that he will recover and will be able to return to his duties, but the guy then asks why she is doing this, and the young lady does not understand what he is talking about. And the young man once again asserts that he kept wondering why she needed this. And the girl asks what conclusion he made, and thinks that, by the way, he is very handsome. The blonde then replies that he doesn't know, and it's infuriating because, as the young lady said, if she really doesn't want a child from him, then why did she start acting like this? The girl then thinks she agrees, and all her actions may seem a little incomprehensible to him. Well, if she tells him everything, she will look even crazier, so now the girl claims that she will simply be glad if he lives a very, very long time. Then she asks him to believe her sincerity. And then the guy asks if that's really the only reason. Selena answers and says that she will go. But the guy then takes the young lady by the hand and notices her bandage. After which he asks when it will be possible to take it off. The girl replies that she heard that she thinks she can wear it for a long time. Well, the guy then asks if I'm imagining things or if she heard it. The young lady replies that she heard, after which she says that while she remembered, it was just time to treat her, so she would definitely go. The guy, watching the young lady leave, thinks that she is really easy to understand. And at first, he thought that the girl was pretending, and that everything would soon end, because it was just a game. Well, he still doesn't understand why this young lady is trying so hard. On this day, the maid claimed that the young lady had left the estate and that she came every day and also pestered the master. So today, he'll be able to focus on eating. And the boy thought it really was very quiet. But the girl always seemed so shy. She didn't approach him, but she didn't move away either and constantly watched him from the side. Well then, putting his spoon on the table, he only cursed. And he asked why she was doing this to him. A few days later, the doctor already states that the bandage is no longer necessary. And the young lady asks if it's time to take it off already and thinks, how can this be? Well, the girl then says that she is there, so she won't forget that her arm hurts. The man then agrees and says that it is clear. And the girl then says that in fact her hand was damaged only slightly compared to Amidu's health. Well, nevertheless, the doctor's treatment helped him, and the Welsh guy will get better. The man then replies that in fact, what he is doing cannot be called treatment, since it is about reducing pain and preventing seizures. And he makes a medicine for people who don't have long to live, and it helps them forget the pain, at least for a while. The young lady then realizes that this is the same thing Walter said. Well, the doctor then says that in any case, the guy is still young, and he is trying to find a way to help him, so he hopes that everything will be okay with him. The young lady then thanks Raymond and silently apologizes for doubting his intentions. At this time, the man only asks if the young lady is okay, and the man asks what he is talking about. The doctor claims that Mrs. Camilla is always worried about her health, and this also applies to mental illness, because the girl does not listen to those around her. The main character then asks what Raymond is trying to tell her, and the man claims that Mrs. Camilla is worried about Togo, that she is not behaving as before, and that something really happened recently. The girl then replies that there is nothing special, after which she asks what it is. The man claims that Mrs. Camilla even asked him whether it was worth sending the girl to a good place for treatment. The young lady then realizes that she probably wants to send her to a mental hospital. That's why now the girl asks if he's really talking about a psychiatric hospital. The man then replies that this place should not be treated with such disdain, because it is intended exclusively for aristocrats and has the best conditions, as well as medical staff. Well, the young lady then, with tears in her eyes, claims that she did say that they are crazy, and thinks, what kind of drama is this? After this, the girl also asks if this place is really not dangerous, because if you put a normal person there, who knows what will happen? However, the man claims that everyone goes through difficult psychological periods and can sometimes lose their mind for a while, and this place is designed for such patients. The young lady then apologizes, and the doctor replies that it's nothing. And it is true that ordinary people do not like to visit him, after which he says that he will go. And when the man leaves, The young lady just sits down on a chair, and she thinks that the fact that she was in a semi-conscious state for 2 weeks was her fatal mistake, and now she needs to maintain her sanity. The girl understands that first she needs to calm down and think everything through. In the early secular circles, only Amid's marriage was known, and no one knew who his wife was. And if they get divorced, the guy will just have to marry another woman. But then the young lady thinks that maybe this is what Camilla wants. After all, if she had wanted to send her to a mental hospital, she would have done it long ago. Speaking of her surroundings, the girl wonders why the hell the maid is so afraid of her. At this time, Rona enters the room and says that a maid from the headmistress has arrived. The main character then asks what happened. And the girl replies that the mistress is calling her, and the young lady agrees, but then wonders if this maid is really new. The girl at this time claims that the mistress will wait for Lady Selena in the Lark's room. The main character then asks if she is talking about the Lark's room and thinks that she can't even imagine what she will be scolding about this time. But when the young lady comes into the room, she doesn't understand what's going on. And is this really a day when a woman gets together with other ladies? And Camilla couldn't call her because she herself was in shock. One of the women at this time asks if this is not the young Duchess. Meanwhile, the mother-in-law tells Selena to walk faster. The girl then agrees, but she is still confused. Camilla says that there is no need to stand there like a pillar and let the girl sit down because she invited her to meet the other noble wives. After which the woman begins to introduce her friends and claims that to her left is the wife of the Marquis Mordo, and also the wife of Count Lapan, and finally the wife of the Marquis of Avon. The young lady smiles and states that she is glad to welcome everyone. The girl understands that it is now midday and this is a leisurely tea party, which should look elegant and noble, but the topics of conversation range from gossip to politics. At this time, the main character says that there are seedless grapes there, but at this time the woman screams, asking what the girl is talking about, because she thinks that the young lady is talking about her son. However, the main character claims that she was simply going to recommend seedless grapes because they are very tasty. After which she asks her mother if something is wrong. The woman then replies that nothing. And another lady says that thanks to the land reclamation, the grapes are now seedless and so delicious. But the blonde then says that her husband doesn't like it. And the lady with pink hair asks why, to which the woman replies that he says this because he is afraid that his own seed will be lost. Women just laugh after this. And the lady with pink hair then apologizes for laughing so impolitely in front of the Duchess during the survey to understand them correctly because they did not mean any harm. Camilla then replies that everything is fine, otherwise it would be too boring there. And the lady with pink hair then says that Countess Laplan is the most reliable source of information in social circles and that it is never boring with her. And the main character then laughs and asks if it's true, but then someone claims that she heard that Veronica will be back soon. The blonde also claims that this girl has a special relationship with the Duke of Whitebrett. And the main character then thinks about what happened and why her mood has gotten so bad, because for some reason the name Veronica just grates on her ears. The Duchess then says that there is nothing to hide, and claims that Veronica is the youngest daughter of the Marquis of Lotrange. She was engaged to Amid as a child. The young lady then wonders if the novel's protagonist Veronica really did almost marry Amid. At this time, Rona turns to the lady and says that she looks very tired, and also asks if she will have nightmares again. The protagonist replies that yes, and sometimes it doesn't happen that often lately. The girl realizes that her nightmares have become much less frequent, and she hopes this is a good sign. At this time, the maid claims that the kettle is empty and needs to be filled, and the main character then remembers how the women talked about how Veronica would soon return and that she had a special relationship with the Duke. But the girl then thinks why nothing is said about this in the book, although she thinks that this is true, and it cannot be that these two only had a good relationship in childhood. However, the main character still understands that she shouldn't think about this, and considers whether she should count the sheep. Well, then the young lady begins to feel something near her feet, and when he gets up and looks under the blanket, then he sees a giant snake there, and wonders how it got there. The young lady looks at the snake in horror, and then tells it to go away. At this time, the maid comes into the room and says that she brought the mistress some water. But when she sees a snake, she immediately gets scared. The main character tells Rona that this snake is poisonous, and the maid, in shock, asks what to do. The young lady remembers how the last time she encountered the snake, Amid told her not to move, and the girl understands that she needs to calm down. And also remember how the guy dealt with the snake, because he definitely grabbed it by the head. But looking again at the snake's terrible face, the girl finally gives in and realizes that she is about to reach her with her tongue. At this time, the maid only says with tears in her eyes that she must protect her mistress. After which, the main character understands that everything is right and it cannot be left like this. Selena turns to Ron, after which they try to catch the snake in 1, 2, 3 tries, and they still succeed. A little while later, the maids are already asking how the snake got there, and whether it was not the same snake that they were chasing in the garden. The main character then thinks how it could be that the snake crawled from there straight into her room, after which she looks at the head maid and wonders if it is really her. The main character claims that this is just a small commotion and now everything is fine, so let them go their separate ways. The maids then leave the room and tell the mistress to rest. And the young lady claims that it looks like someone wanted to send her a gift, and the maid, in shock, asks if this is really true. But the main character still understands that this is a clear threat, and someone wants her to continue as before and also to act as if she doesn't exist. That's her role, after all. But the girl understands that she can no longer retreat, so now she tells Rona to leave the snake. After all, she wants to show it to someone. A little while later, the girl enters the pharmacy, and Walter asks what they are doing there at such a late hour of the night. The protagonist then tells Walter to take a look and asks if he knows anything about snakes. But the man, shocked, asks if there really is a snake there, and the young lady insists she has a favor to ask. Walter then examines the snake and claims that it is a poisonous species that is found only abroad. So he asks where the hell the girl caught it, and the main game is not just asking if the snake is dangerous. The man replies that the bite site will swell and itch, but it is not fatal. And she hasn't yet fallen into eternal sleep, just blacked out. The young lady then asks if the snake's venom is capable of causing harm, and the man replies that it is, except for a slight itch. And perhaps it was bred for another purpose. The young lady then asks for what purpose. The man claims that the venom of these snakes is used for various purposes, especially for the production of painkillers or contraceptives. And this snake is so expensive, and its venom is also very difficult to obtain, so the man asks the girl if she should leave it with him, to which the main character agrees. A little while later, the girl thanks Jean for giving them a ride, but the guy replies that it's nothing. At night, when the fish auction is held, the guy takes a carriage and goes to the market himself, and for the young lady, this is the only way to sneak out of the estate, so now she asks if she can sometimes ask the guy about this. And he answers that, of course, and when it is convenient for the lady. But he also says that the cart smells of seafood, and the young lady notes that it is not a big deal. After which he also thanks the guy for trying to get the freshest products for the sake of Amta. The man replies that it's all thanks to the young lady who allowed him to move the kitchen and select only the best ingredients. And he also says that, of course, the head maid doesn't like it, and the young lady asks if it's true. The man replies that the voice of the person who manages the money is the loudest, and now that she can no longer manage the kitchen budget, it angers her. The young lady then also looks at the window of her room and sees that the light is on there. The girl also realizes that someone is in her room and has realized she left the estate, and the maid then asks what they should do. The young lady realizes that someone has entered the room while she was gone, and this is extremely infuriating. But first, action must be taken. After which the young lady turns to Rona and tells her to go into the room and pretend that she doesn't know anything. After which the main character approaches Amid's room, but she still understands that she came to come. However, it looks strange, and definitely if she asks for help, then the paralyzer will tell her to get out. Therefore, she understands that asking for help from Amida will most likely not work, and that it would be better for her to do everything herself. However, then someone grabs the young lady by the hand, and it turns out to be that same blonde guy. He asks the girl what happened, and why is she hanging around in front of someone else's door. The main character then asks how he knew it was her, and if he is really a clairvoyant. But the guy replies that she is very noticeable, and if there were security here, she would have been spotted immediately. The main character then thinks that this guy has every chance of starting an affair with Veronica, of course, if he weren't sick. At this time, the man tells her to stop and answer what happened, and the young lady replies that she had business for which she briefly left the estate secretly from her mother, and when she returned, she saw that there was someone in her room, and if she gets caught, the situation will get more complicated. So now the guy asks if she wants him to pretend she was with him. The young lady then replies that if he doesn't like it, then he doesn't have to. And the guy at this time just looks at her hand and sees that it is still bandaged. After which he is silent for a while, and then answers that it's okay, but asks what kind of thing it was that he had to go somewhere at night. The girl then claims that someone put a snake in her room. Amid asks what she is talking about, and the young lady understands that of course he thinks she is lying, but it is the pure truth. And the girl thought about whether to tell her or not, but now she understands that she knew it wasn't worth it. However, the guy now asks who dared to do something like that. And the young lady, in response to this, is surprised, after which she claims that she still does not know who it is, but the snake is expensive, and perhaps someone specially raised it. The guy then says that maybe, and the young lady interrupts him and claims that she needs to tell him something, but then someone knocks on the door, and the Duke asks what is going on, and the maid replies that the young mistress has disappeared, so the young lady wonders what to do. The maid claims that it seems the girl has left the estate, and the main character wonders what she should do because if she is caught, Jean will also be in danger. Well, the guy at this time asks if this is true and says that this is an interesting situation because his wife is next to him. After which the guy unties the young lady's hair, and the main character, shocked, asks what he is doing. Well, the young man whispers to her that it's nothing special, and when the door opens, the young lady thinks what this must mean. The guy at this time claims that they are having a good time together and asks if the maid really opens the door without warning. The girl then, in shock, asks for forgiveness and claims that the head maid asked her to tell him that the mistress disappeared somewhere in the middle of the night. The guy then asks if she was afraid that his wife was walking with someone, and he didn't know that Greta was so worried about this, so now the guy tells the girl to tell her that his wife is now with him and safe. The main character then realizes in shock that she can hear Amid's heartbeat. Well, the guy then tells her to leave him alone, and the young lady at that very moment flies to the other end of the room, embarrassed. The Duke just comes up to her and says that they have sorted this out and now it is time to talk about something else, and the young lady thinks about what to do next. But the blonde just asks why she smells so fishy. A little while later, when the girl has already explained everything, he asks why she has so many enemies. The young lady asks which enemies he's talking about, and the guy claims that as soon as she disappeared, they were all worried, but only just began to suspect something. But Selena replies that there's nothing she can do, and that's just her situation. The girl thinks this is so true, it's almost sad. Meanwhile, the guy says that if that's all, then she can go. The girl agrees, then thanks him for his help, and tells him to rest now. The protagonist then goes into her room and lies down on the bed. She realizes there were too many stairs on the way back, and rumors have probably already spread. The girl also recalls how the Duke asked why she had so many enemies, and thought that she simply wanted to live peacefully and for a long time. But the more people taste power, the less they want to lose it. However, it's worth trying to take it away once. A short while later, the girl is already in Camilla's room, and the woman cries out, "Isn't the girl thinking with her head at all?" After all, what if Amid had become overtired and had another attack? What would have happened then? Selena replies that she was so scared of the snake that she simply asked him to stay with her. But she still asks if that's a sign that his condition is improving. However, the woman says that no matter how much strength he has gained, he can't be alone too often either, to which the main character agrees, but thinks that she will never feel this strength. At this time, the mother-in-law asks why the girl came to her. And the young lady says that she would like to talk about yesterday's incident when a snake appeared in her room. After all, they had to deal with all the snakes in the garden. And the woman then asks what happened to that. and the young lady asks if it's not Greta's fault. Camilla then asks what she is talking about, the young lady insisting that the head maid is responsible for security inside the estate. And even though it is only by agreement, she must bear Amita an heir. The woman then asks what Selena wants to say, and the girl replies that her mother should punish Greta, and the woman is a little surprised. The young lady continues, claiming that the maid isn't doing her job properly, so she's asking to be temporarily relieved of her position as head maid. However, the woman then tells Selena not to touch Greta, and the young lady then says that the maid, whom mother personally brought, other maids cannot disobey. But even Jean, who has exceptional authority in the kitchen, felt awkward and Greta exceeded her authority, so it is definitely worth leaving everything as is. Just then, someone enters the room and interrupts their conversation. It turns out to be Greta, and the woman claims she brought refreshments. And Camilla then says that the girl came just in time, and she heard that she was abusing her power as head maid. And because of this, Selena will leave her temporary leave. The head maid then simply places the treats on the table and asserts that sometimes coercion is necessary in order to control a large number of people. And there might be some dissatisfaction along the way, but she wanted everyone to work tirelessly. The main character then thinks that this is how the maid spoke. So now the girl asks, what if a snake crawled into Amid's room? Camilla doesn't even know what to say in response to this. And the young lady says that they should just think about it, because if this snake had bitten Amid, wouldn't it have been terrible? The head maid then immediately falls to her knees and screams at her mistress that she was always loyal and carried out her orders, and if it weren't for her, who would take care of this mansion? However, the woman then tells Greta to stop, and the young lady realizes that this woman values the head maid more than she could have imagined. But if this continues, there is no way she will be fired. However, at the same moment, the Duke turns to his mother and asks, what if it is his order? The young lady's response is only surprise and wondering what Amid is doing there. And Camilla says that he himself came to her room. The man claims that he agrees with his wife's position, and it seems Greta needs time to think about her behavior, because she should no longer appear in the chambers, and the maid should no longer come to him at night to tell him that his wife is missing. The woman then says that the girl just disappeared so suddenly that she was worried, but the boy insists it's more like suspicion than concern. The maid then clarifies that she heard the young mistress secretly left the estate yesterday. However, the boy replies that his wife was with him. But the head maid insists that yesterday was not a good day for intimacy. The Duke then asks if he should really ask her permission. And the main character realizes that if she were the head maid, she'd faint. Meanwhile, Camilla turns to her son and tells him how much he loves his wife. And the guy replies that to dishonor his wife's honor is the same as dishonoring his part. The maid has dishonored the Duchess and therefore must be held accountable. Camilla then says that if he thinks so, then so be it. She then turns to Greta and asserts that this is Duke Ypret's order. Tell her more, but at this point only cries are heard begging the lady not to do this. And the main character thinks what an unexpected development of events this is. At this point, the guy approaches the door and states that he is leaving. The young lady then wonders what it was, and whether it was his face just now. Camilla then turns to the young lady and says that Greta's place has become vacant, and as the girl herself knows, she now has a lot of work. So Selena will have to take care of the housekeeping for a while, and the girl then asks what mother is talking about. But the woman asks if she wants to say that she doesn't want to do it. After which the main character only claims that she is doing everything possible because her mother entrusted her with it. And Greta at this time looks at her angrily. After tea, the young lady goes to the Duke, but the guy then says that now she just comes in and doesn't even knock. However, the young lady claims that she felt like he wasn't feeling well, after which she asks if everything is okay, but the guy replies that it's just spring and he's a little sleepy. But the young lady then puts her hand to his forehead, after which he does the same with his own, and says that he has a fever, so he needs to call Raymond as soon as possible. However, the Duke grabs her hand, after which he says that she is so noisy. A little while later, the guy is already lying in bed, and the doctor says it's a common seasonal cold. And because of the medications he takes, his immunity is weakened, so the guy caught a cold, so the woman shouldn't worry. The main character then asks if the guy is really okay. after which she takes his hand. The doctor replies that, of course, he's been sick much less this year, and it seems it's all thanks to the young lady's efforts. The man then says he'll be seeing the lady off, and the woman thanks him. The young lady at this time understands that she has not yet completely calmed down, but her conscience torments her for doubting such a person. At this time, Amid opens his eyes, and the main character says, thank God it's just a cold and the fever has gone away. The girl also says that he probably wants to drink, after which she tells Rona to bring water. However, Emma then takes the tray from the maid and claims that it was her job. The main character asks what the difference is, but the girl replies that this is part of her duties, and she does not want to be a maid who neglects them. The young lady then replies that it is clear and tells someone to bring the medicine already. At this time, the Duke turns to Emma, and the girl is very happy about this, after which she approaches the gentleman and agrees, and also claims that she will get him drunk. However, the main character says that this is enough and the girl can go. But when she wants to take medicine, the maid doesn't give it to her, after which she claims that this is her job. However, the main character then presses on a point located on the wrist, after which the maid's hand unclenches. And the main character only thanks Emma, after which he hands the medicine to Amid and tells him to drink it. But when the guy looks at her hand, he thinks why he doesn't take it and whether the medicine from her hands turns into poison, after which the girl asks if she should really give him a drink again. The guy then snatches the medicine from her hands and drinks it, after which he says that's it and let them leave, and the young lady orders everyone to leave. The guy reacts with surprise, and the main character, with a smile on her face, asserts that she will not go anywhere. A little while later, she is already helping Amid wipe away his sweat, and the girl wonders if such a person really falls into eternal sleep. And isn't this nonsense? So the girl turns to Amid and tells him not to fall into eternal sleep. After all, she will definitely save him. A little while later, the main character is already looking at the book and asking if this is all the accounting. The former head maid replies that yes, and the young lady says that there should be a separate detailed book. But the woman replies that she is very complicated and the young lady will not understand. But the main character claims that she wants to see everything, so let the woman carry it and not forget anything about what she agreed to. Selena is sure that the head maid has been very angry with her since that day, but she deserved it. The young lady also thinks how difficult it is to figure all this out, and Rona asks if it is really that difficult. The girl claims that the habits of the person who keeps the account book have a big influence on her, since everyone writes signs, symbols, and numbers in their own way. But the girl also understands that Greta won't be kind enough to explain everything to her, and now he'll decide not to distract the person who could help. The maid then asks what about the butler, Colton, since he served the previous duke and was the longest-serving member of the mansion. The main character then replies that it's true, and the maid will call him for food right away. A little while later, she apologizes for disturbing him. Colton replies that it's okay. After all, when the former duke was still alive, he was in charge of the household and did everything in his power to help her. The girl then turns to Colton and asks where most of the budget goes. The man replies that, as a rule, it's for consumables such as candles and soap. The young lady then claims that it says they are purchased in one place, but the quantity is not specified. The man then asks if his business partner has changed, and the young lady asks if it's true. The butler claims that partners used to be reliable and usually rarely changed, but it seems some time has passed since the change. The young lady then asks why they were changed, and the man replies that he doesn't know either. The girl then turns to Colton and says that if he has a proposal, then let him say it. After all, she knows how careful he tries to be, but he is a faithful butler, and the man then claims that it is usual. This is done for the purpose of theft, after which the young lady asks what he is talking about. But at that very moment, Greta enters the room and says that she brought the accounting that the girl asked for. But when she sees the butler, she is a little surprised. However, he still puts the books on the table and claims that everything is there. The young lady then thanks Greta. That evening, the young lady sighs heavily and says she's basically finished, and now she should look at it. The maid asks if the lady is reading a cookbook again because there are so many interesting books, and she is focused on these ones. After which, she, also shocked, asks the mistress if she can read it all. And, as expected, the mistress is excellent. But the main characters don't answer, saying that everything is wrong. Then she realizes she was holding the book upside down and claims she borrowed it from Jean but can't read it because it's in a different language. The maid then asks why her mistress is reading it, and the girl insists she's thinking of trying to cook some nutritious food for Amid. But he can't understand anything and can't ask questions either, because Jean is busy. Well, then the maid asks why not ask him, and the young lady asks who she is talking about. A little while later, the Duke asks the girl why she came this time. The young lady then lays out the books and claims that they are for reading together. But the Duke points to the book in his hand and claims that he is already doing this. But the young lady replies that no, and they will read this book to me, after which she asks what about the cookery book, and this is not because she cannot read it herself. The man then looks at this book and claims that it is the language of the Principality of Rhodes. The young lady then says that this is a country famous for its delicious food and asks if this is true. But the man asks if she wants to read it. The young lady replies yes, and then asks what's so special about it. And the Duke translates the title of the book, which is called 100 Dishes for a Hot Night with Your Loved One. Another book about a special recipe for a hot night and ways to turn your husband into a real beast. The young lady then screams that enough is enough and let's move on. The Duke, with a smirk on his face, asks why she doesn't want to find out since she's already come, and the girl replies that she already said they've passed, after which she tells him to give her the book. The guy insists the woman wants to help, so he asks why she refuses, but the young lady screams again for him to return it quickly. And she cries out, is he really making fun of her? But then the girl's leg twists a little, and she loses her balance. Well, when a young lady falls on her husband, she thinks, why is he beautiful, even when he has fallen? After which, the young lady immediately crawls away and asks if everything is okay and if he is hurt. The guy just clenches his fist after this, and he asks what the hell her goal is. The young lady asks what he's talking about, and the guy asks why she's pretending to be sincere. Selena says that she is completely honest and understands that she has already done so much, but he still has doubts. Therefore, the young lady claims that he should not say such things and focus on a speedy recovery. The girl understands that she just wants him to live happily ever after, and she can safely get out of this mansion. But the young man then says no, and tells her to answer honestly. The young lady then asks in shock why he keeps asking. However, the young man only grabs her hand and asks what her intentions are. Selena understands that this is a big problem because she cannot avoid answering, so she needs to come up with some kind of excuse. And now she screams the first thing that comes to her mind, and that's that she loves him. After this, the guy just looks at her with disgust and asks what kind of nonsense she's talking about. But the young lady asks if she would have behaved this way if she didn't love him. The guy then asks why and from whence. And also if she says something like love at first sight, he won't let it go that easily. The girl then thinks how scared she is, after which she claims that when he caught the snake, she felt true love. At this point, Polya just looks at her in shock, but then turns around, and the main character asks what happened. But the Duke only persuades her to leave, and the young lady wonders if her confession really shocked him so much. After which, she picks up the book from the floor and agrees. The girl leaves and does not understand why he reacts this way, but perhaps it is better for her to leave. After which, she turns to Amid and tells him to rest then. A short time later, the maid brings the mistress her medicine and says it's time to take it. The young lady then asks if there are really 2 medicines today, and the maid replies that Dr. Raymond added another one, and he said that he wanted to help her fulfill her desire to have a child. The young lady then realizes that the medicine has a sweet smell, and the maid then says that today is that very day. The main character asks what day it is, and Rona replies that it is the whole day of intercourse. The main character then throws away the bottle of medicine. After which, in shock, he asks if it is really today and thinks that this is impossible, and also whether this time has really already come. Rona asks if the lady has forgotten, and the girl only laughs and asks how she could forget about something like that. The young lady realizes that after that day they behaved as usual, but the day of intercourse was so awkward. The maid at this time claims that today is an excellent opportunity and the astrological forecasts are favorable. after which the girl hands the bottle to the lady, and the young lady wonders if everything will be all right. A little while later, the main character is already taking a bath, and the maid claims that if she takes it with this potion, the aroma of her body will become more pleasant. The young lady realizes that Raymond carefully calculated the best days for conception, taking into account her menstrual cycle, and Camilla even called an astrologer renowned for his skill. And if we follow the novel by Lady Corona, then many ladies in the capital trusted her with their problems. The areas her magic covered were love, marriage, and pregnancy. One of the maids said she heard from Master Rattus that the lady and the duke spent the night together as soon as they became engaged. And another maid asked whether, having determined the gender, the woman also assumed that twins would be born. And the young lady now thinks that Camilla will also be eagerly awaiting the date that the fortune teller predicted. Rona then turns to the lady and tells her to accept it. And the young lady thinks that even if this is the case, there is no way she can be pregnant. That same evening, she was thrown into the duke's room, and the maid just wishes her good night, but when the main character tries to tell her something, the door slams shut. And the young lady understands that she is already in a similar situation for the umpteenth time and cannot get used to it. And she is also wearing such a cute outfit. After which the girl approaches the duke's bed and thinks that she will quickly say hello and leave. After which she says that it is already so late, so she will go to her room, but the guy only tells her to go there. After which the young lady is a little surprised, and the guy points to the bed and tells her to go there and sit down. The young lady then thinks why this is happening all of a sudden, and she should rather refuse the guy, but she still comes up and talks about it. The duke then just smiles and claims that he heard something funny. The young lady then asks what he heard, and the guy replies that lately, for some reason, everyone is worried about his condition and, without realizing it, he himself has begun to worry about it. So now he asks if the girl is saying that he couldn't do what he was supposed to do correctly. The young lady then asks in shock what he is talking about, and the guy pulls her closer to him. And she claims that he told her to sit next to him, so she asks why she is running away again. But before the girl can answer anything, the young man simply pushes her onto the bed and asks if it is comfortable. The girl just screams for a mid not to joke with her like that, and the young man asks why, because last time he got a joke from her and now it's her turn. But the main character cries out that it's better to do it with words. However, at this time, the guy is only untying her dress. After which he replies that he is tired of joking in words, so he suggests they have some fun once. The main character then cries out in shock, asking what he's doing. The duke replies that it's good to be honest with each other. Moreover, he heard that serious reasons prevented him from fulfilling his marital duty. The main character then looks away and asks who said that. But the guy wonders who could believe it. The main character then asks who opened their mouth and whether it was his mother or Raymond, and the girl asks if they dared to say such a thing. But the duke then asks what Mama, Raymond, and Jean mean. The young lady then wonders if he's simply asking again, but then says that's not what he thinks. The guy asks if she told the three of them that he didn't have the strength to do his job properly last night, at which point the girl becomes embarrassed. But she still tries to justify herself. The guy just asks if it would be cool if he gained weight, and is it really because she loves him? The main character then asks if he remembers this, and after that the guy just tells her to try to prove that she is in love with him, and also how much she loves him. After which the young man extends his hand higher and higher and says that the situation is indeed very suitable. The young lady's face turns red after this, and then the girl screams for a mid to wait. It seems like there's some kind of misunderstanding. However, the guy then asks if it wouldn't be better for her to think with her head. After all, if a girl wants to carry his child, then she should quickly undress and rush to him. And he asks if she thought it would work. But the main character then screams that this is not really true. However, the guy then grabs her hand and says that it turns out that it doesn't hurt anymore. The young lady gets scared even then, and the duke asks if this was also a game. The guy then begins to unwind the bandage on the girl's hand. And he claims that, although he was not entirely sure, he was sure that this was true when she was kneeling before him. However, all this was just her imagination. The young lady then turns to a mid in shock and cries out that this is not so because she had no other reasons, and she really wanted him to get well. However, after this, the guy only turns to her and says that he has had enough of these ridiculous tricks. After all, even if she hadn't begged then, he would have tolerated her joke until the end, after which the guy leaves the room. A little while later, while the young lady was embroidering, she cut herself with a needle. The maid then asks if the mistress is okay, after which she claims that this week she is completely exhausted, so the maid asks her to put the embroidery aside and rest. The main character replies that she is fine and nothing special. But Rona asks if anything happened that night since the master is nowhere to be seen either. Selena realizes she hasn't seen Amid for several days after that night, and she heard that he did not leave the room and even skipped meals, so the girl wonders if he is okay. But the maid at this time claims that this means that he is. The young lady then asks what she is talking about, and the maid replies that these are just rumors that the master does not have the strength to do this. The main character then screams that no, I don't, and asks where these rumors come from, and the maid replies that she heard them somewhere. Rona remembers walking past while the other maids were chatting about it. And the main character then realizes that Amid knows everything in detail. At this time, the maid turns to the mistress and asks if she would like to wear a new dress. But the girl then asks why all of a sudden. And Rona replies that all of these are already out of fashion. The young lady then realizes that clothing is a way to show one's status, and for the Duke's wife, she dresses too simply. And Camilla, when she saw her things for the first time, was indignant. After that, they immediately took her measurements, but only a few outfits were quickly sewn together. After all, her role was not to move in social circles, but to give birth to an heir. At this time, the maid turns to the mistress and asks what kind of bag this is since it was lying in the closet. And the girl replies that these are the things that she brought with her when she first arrived there, and the maid says that this is such a loss. But these things are probably important to the mistress. The main character replies that yes, but there is nothing expensive about it. The maid then says that, one way or another, this is too much for the mistress of the Yiprit family. Selena replies that she's not planning on going out today, but the maid points out that Mistress Camilla is always exquisitely dressed even at the mansion, and it would also look very good on the lady. The main character then says that maybe they can pick out a couple of new outfits for her, and the maid then asks if this is true, after which she claims that she will call a stylist right away. She also runs away and claims that she will report to Mistress Camilla's special dressing room and return. A little while later, several outfits are brought to the young lady, and the girl then wonders what it is. The woman at this time says that she is pleased to meet Mrs. Iprit, and she claims to be the chief fashion designer named Paula. The protagonist then replies that she's pleased to meet her. The woman then says that the girl must have been surprised by her sudden visit, but the Duchess ordered her to do whatever her daughter-in-law desired, and the protagonist believes that Camilla's reputation saved her. At this time, the stylist says that today she will definitely create a dress that the lady will like, and the young lady agrees, after which she tells the girl not to take care of it. A little while later, the young lady is already looking at a magazine with sketches, after which her measurements are taken. And in the end, this is the design that came out. Now the maid, looking at the dolls, says how beautiful it is, and the main character claims that it is so convenient that you can see the dress patterns on the dolls. The woman replies that she is glad that the lady liked her, and when the Duke gets better, she should come to their dressing room. After all, it has become fashionable lately to visit dressing rooms with your husband, after which she claims that this is where she says goodbye and leaves. And the maid claims that she thinks that when the master sees the mistress in a new dress, he will appreciate it. The main character then thinks that this is how it is, but it seems to her that the guy doesn't care. Well, when she remembered, she only became more worried, and the girl wondered if he could feel even more cold, because the guy was already weak. At this time, the maid turns to her mistress in surprise and asks what she is doing. And the main character just gets up from her seat and understands that if this continues, the project to save Amid will fail, so now she tells Rona that she is going to see the Duke. However, when Selena approaches the door, one of the maids claims that the master said he doesn't want to see anyone. The protagonist then replies that it's understandable, then asks if she'll move over. The girl realizes that she hasn't visited her boyfriend for several days, and everything has changed so abruptly. At this time, Emma also comes up to them, and the woman says that the girl heard that the master doesn't like this, so she should stop and go back to her place. But the main character says that she is her master's wife, and services have no right to stop her. The woman then cries out, "Sir." However, the young lady interrupts her and tells her to move away, then asks how many more times she has to repeat it before she gets it. The woman then just turns around but says that if something happens, it's not her fault. After which the main character opens the door to her husband's room. But when he sees that it is dark, he wonders if the guy has already fallen asleep, because he also does not answer, and his girlfriend wonders why it is so cold in the room. After which she looks at the guy lying in bed and thinks that it can't be that such a sensitive guy didn't notice how she entered. So now the young lady starts to take off his blanket and says that he is a summer doll and asks why he is wrapped up like that, and the girl also claims that she heard and also starved herself. So she suggests talking a little. However, when the young lady sees the state of the blonde, she is shocked, after which he screams his name. The young lady wonders if this is the reason he hasn't left his room for several days. After which, the girl also tells him to come to his senses and realizes that his whole body is burning. The young lady then screams out if there is anyone outside and then tells them to bring a doctor immediately. The guy opens his eyes at this time and he hears the young lady screaming that he must not fall into eternal sleep, but then the guy just thinks why it's her again. The next morning, the young lady wakes up with her head on the bed. The girl says that it is already morning. The Duke then asks how she managed to enter his room again. The young lady then, shocked, asks when he woke up, and the young man replies that he just did. The young lady then asks if he is feeling better, as yesterday he felt very bad. However, after this, the young man only smirks and asks if the Duchess who courts her husband until dawn has really come this time to earn such fame. After all, he told her then that her tricks no longer work. However, the young lady then tells him to stop. The guy then grabs her hand, but after this, the girl only rises from her seat, and he begins to leave. And the Duke at this time screams at her to wait, because he has not finished yet. However, the young lady insists he'll finish the conversation later, and because of him, she couldn't even go to the bathroom all night. After which, the girl leaves, slamming the door. And when she gets to her room, she screams, "This is beyond comprehension." The girl understands that everyone is worried, which is why they made such a fuss yesterday. But Amid only groaned when he came to his senses, and now she understands that she heard from Raymond that when the guy's illness gets so bad, he locks himself in his room. Now the main character understands that she needs to close her eyes quickly. Well, then he looks at the nightstand nearby and sees his bag there. After which he takes it in his hands and thinks that it was possible that Rona cleaned it. But this bag was so shabby. The young lady then opens her bag and sees Dad's memorable pocket watch, as well as the needles and threads that Mom used to sew every day. Also in this bag is a contract with Camilla, and the girl thinks that if anyone finds out about the deal, terrible rumors will start circulating. The girl understands that the diet and medicine were definitely excellent, so she wonders why the Amid attacks did not stop. And the girl thinks what to do if she knows what will happen in the future and why this is happening. But in any case, without Amid's assistance, nothing would have happened and let them not cooperate. Well, if they share the same goal, then it will help her no matter what. The young lady also understands that she must try again to improve her relationship with the Duke. A little while later, the girl is already dressed in a new outfit, and the maid says how beautiful the mistress is. She also claims that this dress is different from the one she picked out, and the young lady replies that of course it is, and asks how much money was spent on it. And also, isn't the neckline too deep? The maid then replies that everything is fine, after which she also points to one of the boxes and claims that it is a gift from Madame Paula. The girl then asks if it is a gift, and when you look in that direction you see that there is a box and a letter in which it is written about gratitude for the purchase. The main character says that the craftsmanship is simply amazing, and she would definitely not have chosen such a style. And the maid tells the lady that since she is so beautifully dressed, she should go to the Duke, And after all, she saw him in the garden. The young lady remains silent for a while after this, and looking at the doll, she understands that she needs to try to improve the relationship. A little while later, the girl approaches the Duke in the garden and asks if he went out for a walk. The girl also claims that the weather is indeed very good and the wind is not strong. Well, the young man then just touches the young lady's hair and says that she has a radiant face. The girl then steps back and thanks him. But the guy asks why she's carrying that thing around, since she's not a child anymore. And the main character replies that Paula gave her a doll that looks like her, after which she asks if it is really beautiful. Amid smiles after this and says that it is hardly and much more beautiful. The main character then becomes embarrassed and wonders what he is talking about. And the guy insists that he's saying the doll is much prettier than her. The main character then replies that, well, of course, she herself thinks she was almost mistaken. After which the girl claims that she actually came to talk to him, and the guy asks if she has anything to say. The young lady then says that even if Amid hates her, she asks him to believe her. And the girl claims that she really wants to save his life, and if he gets better, he will never have to see her face again, and she will also disappear from his life forever, just as he wishes. Well, the girl then thinks that although the guy is now tied to the bed, but he is still a nobleman and close associate of the imperial family, as well as the commander of the Knights of the First Guard of the Knights of the Empire. And as soon as the boy recovers, she'll be kicked out of the mansion. So now the young lady says he'll return to his former life. But at this time, the guy comes closer to her and asks what the girl means by the fact that she will disappear from his life. The young lady then replies that she said so, and when he is cured, her presence will become useless, after which she can calmly leave the estate. And in her thoughts, she adds that with the reward, she will pay off her debts and help her younger brothers and sisters, and if the contract is terminated, she will also receive 500,000 ducats. And the young lady claims that the guy will meet the right girl and then create a happy family. However, the Duke asks if she is asking him to believe this. And the young lady asks what is so stopping him from doing this. Well, the guy asks who would believe in helping out of the kindness of their heart. And he tells the girl to tell the truth, because she is only concerned about compensation and she will not be able to hide it. Or maybe she's thinking of continuing to put on her show. But the main character can't take it anymore and screams out what a scoundrel he is, asking if he's even tried to put himself in her shoes. She realizes he has no idea how she lived her life. So now the young lady asks if he can't just believe, and he has nothing to lose. But the Duke claims that he will fall into eternal sleep anyway, so there is no point in trying. The young lady screams that this is not so, and he just lacks energy, but overall he is fine. And firstly, if the disease were fatal, then poison. Well, the guy then asks what kind of poison she is talking about, and the girl understands that only she knows that they will try to poison Amida. So now she just smiles and insists that she thinks a special approach is needed. And the guy insists that it seems like if he gets worse, it will be her fault, and the girl wonders what kind of nonsense this is. The girl now says that Jean said that after their walks, the guy's face looks healthy and he started eating well, so he needs to be near her. But then the girl suddenly realizes something. After all, if you think about it, why does the guy suddenly feel worse when they move away from each other? After which the young lady turns to Amid and asks who in this estate would most benefit from his immersion in eternal sleep. The guy then asks what this means and whether someone is trying to put him into eternal sleep. The young lady then replies that this seems plausible and asks if he's never thought about it. The young man replies that he probably thinks about it too often, but can't figure it out. His father has only brothers, and there are 5 of them, so if he goes into eternal sleep, all his property will go to either them or their children. It is therefore not surprising that his mother dreams so much of an heir. And the young lady then claims that he even more needs to understand who can harm him. The guy replies that in order to protect him, his servants try his food first, as has the girl recently, but the result is the same. And he had another attack. The young lady then says that his sleep and medication were as usual, and it seems this happens as soon as she stops caring for him. But the girl is now in shock and asks if this is all really just a coincidence. But the Duke then merely turns around and suggests ending this conversation, and that the girl not do anything stupid. The young lady then turns to Amid once again. But the boy then insists that he will fall into eternal sleep either way. And the girl only clutches the doll tighter. That same evening, she lies down on the sofa and sighs heavily. The maid asks if the mistress is unwell, and the young lady replies that it is. She thinks, who knew that the guy would talk so directly about his immersion in eternal sleep? And this problem is not so easy to solve. So the girl wonders what she must do to make the Duke want to live. Meanwhile, the maid offers her mistress a bottle of something and asks how she likes it. The girl then asks in shock if it is really wine, and Rona replies that there is nothing better when you are upset, and if she drinks with the gentleman, the atmosphere will become more pleasant. The girl then realizes that Raymond also said that a little alcohol wouldn't hurt. And now the young lady, looking at the bottle of wine, wonders whether she should try to break the ice. But when the girl arrives in the Duke's room, he simply asks what's wrong, and the young lady offers him a glass of reconciliation. Amid merely tells her to stop and leave. But the girl claims that since she brought wine, why don't they drink it together? She also says that this is very good wine. And when she opens it, the guy notices that it smells quite good. The young lady then pours it into a glass and offers him at least one, but the guy replies that he won't, and the young lady then tells him to watch her drink. A little while later, the girl has already finished the bottle, and the Duke, with a smile on his face, says that it seems delicious, after which the young lady says that since he is curious, let him try it himself. However, the guy says Selena looks drunk and asks if she should go back to her room, then asks why she even came to his room. She replies that there are treats there, and the man asks what she's talking about, but the young lady only points to his face after that. After which he asks where in the world such a confectionery shop is located. However, after this, the Duke only says that since they have made up, then let her leave. But the young lady asks if that is all, because the alcohol is not strong enough, and the guy asks what she is talking about. However, the main character replies that everything is fine, and even the commander of the knights can get drunk sometimes. Well, at that very moment, the guy snatches the bottle from her hands, after which he drinks it in one gulp. The young lady then cries out about her guilt. But when he sees how its drops fall on the Duke's neck and his collarbone, he even becomes a little embarrassed. The guy asks her if she's satisfied. The main character simply asks him to have another drink, after which she says that now she will give him something to drink, after which she gets up and says that he needs to drink again. However, the girl accidentally spills the wine, and when she sees the Duke's angry face, she realizes it's a complete failure. The young lady watches as the wine drips from the table onto the floor, and the Duke at this time rises from his seat and says that the girl is drunk. And they all drank the wine, so let her return to her room. The young lady then wonders what he's talking about and whether this is the end. But the guy simply tosses her a rag and tells her to clean up the spill herself. And the young lady gets angry after this and says how petty he is. But the Duke then says that what can you do, and let her continue, after which the young lady says that he is petty and rude, and the guy then asks if he has ever said that he is docile. After which the young lady looks at the remaining bottle of wine and suggests making a bet. Amid only claims that he told her to go to her room and asks what she's up to again. The girl then replies that there's only one bottle left, and whoever falls first gets to grant the winner's wish, after which she asks how he likes it. However, the guy then only asks what she'll wish for if she wins, and the girl then says if she wins, then... But the Duke suddenly interrupts her and asks how much she wants. But the girl only gets angry after that and asks if people really only want money, and the guy asks if that's not true. And Selena replies that, of course, money is good, but it's too easy. The young man then asks what easy means, and the girl says she's almost envious that he can talk about it so easily. After all, she was trying her best to earn at least a little money, and no matter how hard it was, she didn't want her brothers and sisters to suffer. Well, now the girl, with tears in her eyes, asks why she suddenly started talking about this, and perhaps she had too much to drink. However, the Duke then apologizes, and the young lady is surprised. The man claims he didn't know she was facing such difficulties, and he will be more attentive in the future. The young lady then simply smiles and offers him a drink, After all, since he apologized, he'll have one glass first. The guy then asks what she's offering if he wins. The young lady insists that if he wins, she'll leave him alone. The Duke asks if she will leave him alone, and the girl replies that in fact he also irritates her, and she must give birth to an heir for him, as well as help him defeat the disease and always be there, so if he wins, she will leave him alone. So the young lady holds out her glass and says that this is a perfectly normal desire. A Manhwa takes the glass in his hands and says that it is not bad, and the young lady then says that it is excellent and from now on they will drink. Then she suddenly spills the glass, and the wine drips onto the Duke's pants. The girl, shocked, asks, "How could it be?" So she spilled it too. Afterwards, the young lady turns to Amid and asks if he's okay. When she sees that his pants are all wet, she apologizes and claims that she honestly didn't do it on purpose. However, the guy only tells her to give him a towel. Afterwards, the girl does so but cries out that she's sorry. And he claims that he will wipe it off right now so that he won't be angry. However, the young man only becomes embarrassed by such touches, after which he tells her to stop. However, the young lady cries out that she doesn't have to answer, at least she needs to wipe it off a little. However, after this, the guy only knocks the towel out of her hands and screams for her to stop. The young lady is surprised by this, and then says that she only wanted to help. However, the guy replies that this is not the case, and Selena asks if he really hates her so much and feels disgust even if she just touches him a little with her hand. The young lady realizes that, if she thinks about it, it was like this from the very beginning, and their Duke never touched the tip of her finger. That's why now the girl screams that he is a eunuch. But at that very moment, she closes her mouth and realizes what she just said. The young lady realizes she's probably crazy, because how could anyone say such a thing? After which she gets up and says that her head hurts, and she probably drank too much, so she needs to go back. However, after this, Amid only presses the girl to the sofa and asks where she is going. After all, they didn't finish their sentence, after which he also asks if there's anything else to add. The young lady then claims she was rude, but it wasn't entirely a lie, since in 2 years he hadn't even touched her once. However, after this, the young man only comes closer to her and says that he will prove it then, after which he kisses Selena. The girl doesn't even know what to do. And when the kiss ends, the Duke asks if this is enough proof. The main character is embarrassed and thinks that this can't be. And did she really just kiss this man, after which the girl thinks that she and Amid could really do this? However, then she just grabs his cheek, and the guy is surprised and then asks what she is doing. However, the young lady only laughs and asks what kind of expression that is. The Duke removes her hand, and she too is a little embarrassed. However, the young lady then moves closer to him, thinking that the alcohol is to blame, and the fact that she kisses him too, and the guy thinks that alcohol is to blame for the fact that she looks so cute, after which he raises his hand a little higher. The young lady claims she doesn't understand this very well, but suggests continuing. A short time later, the young man takes off his shirt. The main character simply looks away in embarrassment. The girl realizes that she has already seen his body several times, but still very embarrassed. The Duke at this time only smiles and asks what is going on, since they have come so far, and she is scared. The guy also says that if that's how it is, then let her say it now, because later he won't be able to stop. However, the young lady then grabs the blanket and says that she doesn't love him, to be away from him. Amid then tells Selena not to forget these words, after which he kisses the girl and says that he wants her too. The next morning, the young lady wakes up and thinks how thirsty she is. But when she turns her head, she sees the shining face of her husband, after which she thinks what happened. The young lady recalls what happened last night, up until the moment they kissed. After which she immediately gets out of bed and understands that the first thing she needs to do is get back to her place, and she will think about the rest later. When the young lady goes to her room, the maid asks if her mistress has returned, and the girl, shocked, asks if it was Ron or something. The maid replies that she didn't know when her mistress would return, so she waited. After which she claims Lady Selena is tired and says she'll help with her clothes. The main character then thanks the maid, but then he asks how she knew she was tired, but the maid only hands over a mirror. And when the young lady looks at it, she asks in shock, "What the hell is this?" Rona says how hot she and the gentleman are, and they have traces of love everywhere. And the main character thinks that this is not it, because she has a meeting with Camilla today. After which she claims that she needs to quickly find clothes with a high collar, and the maid claims that this is a chance to show their intimacy for the first time in a long time, but the main characters do not answer that she cannot walk around like that. Rona says that if that's the case, she can cover it all up with makeup. After which the maid does just that and says it's such a shame, since it's so fashionable to wear makeup like that lately. The young lady asks if this is a joke, since who's capable of such recklessness? The maid claims that at the last tea party, she heard this from noble ladies, and they said that this kind of makeup became fashionable thanks to Lady Louise. The main character realizes that this lady is incredibly rich and has recently returned from abroad, and she is also called a magnificent beauty with red hair and wine-colored eyes. Selena wonders if this really is the same Louise. After all, the place only true aristocrats can visit is Opium, the high society hub. And its head is Madame Louise, so the girl wonders if Madame is hiding her identity and moving in the close circle of the imperial family. At this time, the maid claims that recently the woman has been patronized by the emperor himself, but the empress often communicates with Madame Camilla. The main character then realizes that the current empress and Camilla are cousins, but she feels uneasy somehow, and the young lady thinks that maybe it's just her mood. When the girl comes to Mrs. Camilla, she asks what kind of collar it is. The young lady only smiles in response. She claims the weather has been unpredictable lately, and she seems to have caught a cold. Her mother-in-law then points out that the girl was so proud of her healthy body and asks how she can now send the girl to a mid. However, the young lady tells her not to worry, as she won't be able to go near the guy for a while, and she knows she doesn't even have the courage to look him in the face. But the woman says that, whatever the case, she should try to recover before their night together. After all, everything should go without a hitch, and the main character replies that of course she will try. Well, then the girl suddenly realizes they didn't use protection the night before, and a little while later, walking through the garden, she realizes this is a big problem, and she couldn't even listen to what Camilla was saying after that. Now the young lady is in shock, wondering what she's catching. The Duke hates such things, and he will most likely say that this was her goal. So now the girl understands that he will despise her, but the girl still turns around and understands that she just needs to pretend that nothing happened, and the Duke will do the same himself. However, when the girl opens her eyes, she sees Amita and the guy says that this is where she is. The young lady then, shocked, asks if it really is Amid. The Duke approaches her and offers to talk. The young lady then asks why he suddenly wanted to talk about the guy. He replies that it was about last night and asks how she could come up with such a topic of conversation. After this, Selena simply points to the side and cries out that there's a snake there. The Duke then turns around in shock and asks what she's talking about. But when she turns back, the young lady is already running away, and the girl apologizes to Amid in her thoughts, but understands that now she does not have the courage to talk to him. When the young lady returns to the room, the maid asks if the mistress is all right and offers her a glass of cold water. The girl thanks Rona, and the maid says that no matter how hard she looks, she can't find it. After which, the young lady asks what she's talking about. Rona replies that she can't find the second earring and that it might be somewhere else. The young lady then apologizes to the maid in her mind and realizes that it's true that the earring isn't in her room. It was already gone when she walked down the hallway that morning. However, Rona says that the lady took such good care of these earrings, and the girl replies that it was because it was a gift for her birthday. Selena realizes that her father bought her these earrings as a gift for her 15th birthday, and he said that they went well with her name. These earrings are like a talisman for her, but the girl understands that she is not going to look for them in Amid's room now. But the girl then says that at least now she has this, so everything is fine. The young lady looks at the engagement ring that Camilla has prepared. After all, in order to confirm the legitimacy of the marriage during the ceremony, a wedding gift was needed, and then it seemed to her that this was too much, so the girl wore this ring only as a reminder of her presence in the mansion. But she herself did not notice how she began to wear it as a talisman. At this time, the Duke sits on the edge of the bed, after which he remembers what happened in the morning. and wonders why the girl ran away. And at that moment, despite the fact that they were drunk, he thought that they were being honest with each other. However, the Duke then thinks whether there could be something else, after which he thinks in shock. Could it really be that bad? The guy lies down on the bed and realizes it couldn't get any worse. But even if nothing can be done about it, the guy then sees something sparkling under his pillow. And when he picks this thing up, he wonders if this is really an earring. A little while later, the main character peeks out from around the corner, and after she's convinced the Duke isn't there, she finally comes out. When the young lady enters her room, she says that thank God they haven't seen each other today. The girl realizes that several days have passed since their last meeting, and she continued to avoid Amid. She herself is sickened by this behavior, but lacks the courage to speak up. The maid turns to her mistress and asks if she's returned yet, and also whether she went to see the butler, Koltun, again. She replies to the main character that yes, and they finally finished the accounting analysis. The girl realizes that throughout the entire time she was wary of meeting Amid, she had been carefully studying Greta's ledger, and after deciphering the contents with Koltun's help, the headmaid's theft was fully confirmed. The woman stole during the day so that no one would notice, but the total amount of stolen goods ended up being quite large. So now the young lady thinks that, however, not a single person could even suspect anything. And what's more, this means that the headmaid's power was absolute. But Ronan now asks if it's true that Greta is also connected to the snake incident. After all, if we connect these two incidents, then after the guy got sick, the woman was much more worried about the estate itself, and the fact that a snake appeared in the mansion suggests that someone released it. The protagonist claims that no one but Greta could pull off such a thing now. The young people understand that there was no evidence last time, and she backed down, but now everything is different. Therefore, it's necessary to act while the woman's influence weakens. But the maid asks how the mistress plans to report the thefts, since it's unknown even if there is evidence. And the main character claims that this is something that needs to be checked, after which she goes to the headmaid's room and understands that if her assumptions are correct, then something is definitely hidden there. The girl also remembers how Rona gave her the keys and claimed that this room was on the right, so now the young lady understands that she must definitely find evidence. However, when the young lady enters the room and looks around, she thinks that it is much easier than she thought. After which the girl looks at the chest covered with black cloth and realizes that this thing seems suspicious. After which she takes off the black cloth and realizes that there is something absurd about this, but if she can find evidence, then everything is fine. However, when the young lady opens the chest, she sees that there are only clothes and books. After which she wonders if that is all. A little while later, Selena returns and realizes that she searched the entire room, but there was no evidence, and the girl wonders if her suspicions were wrong. But if it's not the headmaid, then it's still the same. However, lost in her thoughts, the girl doesn't notice how she bumps into someone, after which she apologizes and says she wasn't paying attention. However, then she sees that it is the Duke and is a little surprised. The guy just claims that the game of hide-and-seek was fun. The young lady asks why he is there. Well, the guy just grabs her hand and apologizes, but claims that this will never happen to him again, so let her not run away anymore. After that, the two of them sit down on the bench and remain silent.